This guy kills himself working 3 jobs just to put food on his family's table. But then his life gets flipped upside down when the tower marks him as a challenger and unlocks a totally broken ability. He can summon legendary heroes to fight in his place. Here's the thing, he's a coward who trembles just hearing the word battle. Still, with an army of ridiculously overpowered summons, he starts to farm money, respect, and power inside the tower. He goes from being a total loser to a true monster among humans. If you're into MCs with broken skills and huge glow-ups, then hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and let's dive into this manhwa, cause it seriously helps me keep bringing these stories your way. We start with Bong Jun-hyuk, a 25-year-old dude barely scraping by. He sees himself as a total loser, zero talent, just a healthy body. That's why he kills himself working 3 part-time jobs, cashier, waiter, and construction helper. And the worst part, even busting his butt, he doesn't have a single cent left. Every penny goes straight to covering his interest debts. Living in a tiny, rundown studio in a noisy, grimy neighborhood, he knows his future's not looking bright. He's trapped in this hellish cycle of work and despair. But hold up, his already messed up life just gets flipped upside down. Out of nowhere, a status window simply pops up right in front of him. He's so startled he chokes on the ramen he's eating, thinking he's hallucinating. The window announces that he, Bong Jun-hyuk, has finally awakened. And this is such a huge mess he can barely process it. In his world, this whole awakened thing is like hitting the lottery, a unique chance to turn your life around. But it's also a guaranteed horrible death. To cash in on this luck, you gotta enter the tower. That's a place where you can die in a million different ways, torn apart by monsters, frozen, burned, poisoned, crushed by traps. Jun-hyuk's always been the timid type, running from any danger, even old buildings he thought might collapse. For a coward like him, the tower seemed like a one-way ticket to hell. Just to make sure it wasn't just exhaustion talking, he risks a test and shouts, "Status window," out loud. To his surprise, the panel appears again. And get this, he's a summoner with abilities for simultaneous, designated, and random summoning. He's completely shocked. He's not dreaming, this shit is real, and now he has the power to summon. Super curious, he tries his first summon, yelling summon, and then random summon, nothing. He feels like an idiot, remembering that awakened abilities only work inside the tower, not here in the real world. Outside of it, the only thing an awakened can do is open their status window. Otherwise, they're nobody just like anyone else. But then, to Jun-hyuk's absolute dismay, the random summon ability simply activates. What? A tower skill worked in the real world? His head spins, unable to understand what the hell is happening. And what appears isn't a monster or a spirit or a golem. It's a dude, a human being just standing there in his living room. He's in absolute shock, wondering, what even is this madness? Summoned guy, who introduces himself as John Kozak, seems more worried about whether the ramen smell is real and if he can have some. Jun-hyuk, still pretty tense about the whole bizarre situation, eventually gives in. And this Kozak guy practically dives into the ramen like there's no tomorrow. It's the weirdest thing, a summoner who summoned a mooch who only cares about ramen. Jun-hyuk can't process that, of all things, he summoned a starving guy. Jun-hyuk goes back to the status window to better understand this mess. The system explains his summoning is focused on humans and demi-humans, with rarities from rare all the way to special super rare legendary, like a gacha game. But the most important part are 3 principles. The summoned must protect the summoner's life, absolutely obey their orders, and if there's a conflict, life protection comes first. Absolute obedience makes Jun-hyuk's head spin. He's already thinking of 1,000 uses for it. When he checks the catalog to see who this John Kozak is, Jun-hyuk's life gets flipped again. The guy's title is Mad Assassin of the Cruel Assassin Guild, a super rare who is both his guild's greatest asset and biggest headache. Kozak's smile now looks like a promise of terror. Suddenly, a hellish headache hits Jun-hyuk. He's pulled into Kozak's memories, reliving the assassin's past as a spectator. He sees the guy was called Mad because after killing his victims, he'd decapitate the bodies, wrap the heads in ribbons, and send them as gifts. It's a horrifying vision, and Jun-hyuk's stomach churns with the cruelty of the being he just summoned. The memories continue, showing Kozak's end. His downfall came from pure arrogance, underestimating his last target, who was none other than the strongest swordsman in the empire. Jun-hyuk watches the assassin's own death, witnessing the exact moment that damn Kozak met his end. Back in reality, Jun-hyuk's heart almost jumps out of his mouth when Kozak appears right behind him, asking what he was thinking about so much. Our boy's initial panic is massive, but he clings to the system's principles. Kozak must obey. He needs to control this psychopath, even if he's scared to death. Gathering courage, Jun-hyuk orders Kozak to wash the ramen pot, clean the table and the floor. And get this, the guy obeys instantly, without questioning. Jun-hyuk is shocked, a mix of surprise and tense relief. He calls the summoned Mr. Kozak, and the assassin reiterates his complete submission. Really test this obedience, Jun-hyuk throws out an absurd order. He tells Mr. Kozak to bark like a dog. For a second, the apartment goes dead silent, Jun-hyuk sweating bullets, thinking he went too far with a guy who was so proud in the past. But to his total surprise, the assassin starts barking like an excited puppy. It's the ultimate proof. The guy's obedience is absolute, and Ju-hyuk is now certain of his power over him. The peace lasts barely seconds, like literally seconds. A pounding on the door, accompanied by shouts calling Ju-hyuk's name. He freezes, remembering a tragedy he'd forgotten. Today's the day to pay interest to the loan sharks. In complete despair, he tells Kazak to hide, no matter what. Kazak, with a sinister smile and daggers in hand, offers to rip the heads off those bastards banging on the door. Ju-hyuk goes into full panic, denying everything and shoving the assassin into the bathroom. He orders him to stay quiet, not move a muscle, not utter a peep. Kazak, confused, asks if he can at least breathe. Ju-hyuk, rolling his eyes nervously, replies, "Yes, of course, but that's it." With the psycho locked in the bathroom, Ju-hyuk finally opens the door for the loan shark. The guy, with a harsh face, walks in with cruel sarcasm. He scoffs, asking if Ju-hyuk was sick, since the interest hadn't landed in their account. Our protagonist apologizes frantically, saying he forgot but that he's already sent the money. The humiliation is palpable, but he has to swallow it to survive. Add more terror, the loan shark lays it out. If things get tight, Ju-hyuk can sell an organ on the black market, like a kidney, and his problems will vanish. And it gets worse when the goons in the hallway start taunting. They comment that they remember Ju-hyuk's younger brother and that young people's organs are worth a lot more. Hatred boils in Ju-hyuk, but he's forced to bow down and say he'd never dare anything against them. As soon as the debt collectors leave, laughing at his face, Ju-hyuk locks the door and calls Kazak. The psycho assassin comes out of the bathroom calm, reporting that he obeyed everything. Ju-hyuk sighs, exhausted. An insane day, double shift, awakened, summoned an assassin, and still dealt with loan sharks. He thinks about the debt and the tower, but knows a coward like him would never survive in there to make money. Kazak breaks the silence and asks what the next step is. Ju-hyuk replies he doesn't know and, surprisingly, asks what the summoned wants to do. He even offers to desummon him if that's the case. But the assassin, for a change, asks to watch TV, since it's been a long time since he last did. Ju-hyuk agrees, telling him to make himself at home. And so, the bloodthirsty psychopath flops onto the couch to watch a K-drama, while our exhausted protagonist passes out on the couch beside him. Before falling completely asleep, Ju-hyuk thinks that maybe having Kazak around isn't so bad after all. After so long alone, killing himself working, his presence, bizarre as it was even a certain comfort. The next day, Ju-hyuk wakes up early and realizes Mr. Kazak isn't there anymore. He was desummoned, remembering there was a time limit for manifestation. He shakes his head, deciding he'll put this whole, awakened, madness aside and get ready for another day of work. Wait, the TV is on GBC News and the anchor is reporting a brutal crime. At the Smile Cash office, an illegal loan agency in the Jono district. The name paralyses Ju-hyuk. The report continues, revealing that 3 victims were found decapitated, and the most shocking detail, the heads were decorated with red ribbons like gifts. Ju-hyuk's blood runs cold. He goes into absolute despair, screaming, "Comforting my ass." He didn't summon a roommate. He summoned a psycho, lunatic, utterly bloodthirsty assassin. The whole city is buzzing about one thing, the brutal Smile Cash murders. Headlines are screaming terror. 3 heads chopped off, wrapped like macabre gifts, complete with little red bows. Our guy, Bong Jun-hyuk, sees it on TV and instantly gets how deep the trouble is. He knows, without a shadow of a doubt, that the damn Kazak was behind this massacre. And now he's like totally screwed. Bong Jun-hyuk is working the supermarket register, and his mind is racing a mile a minute. The trauma is so bad that instead of products, he sees the loan sharks' heads rolling on the conveyor belt, red bows where price tags should be. In total panic, he hallucinates his own severed head asking him why he isn't scanning the groceries. The freakout is real. He screams in despair, scaring the customer who just wanted to buy her stuff. He tries to play it off, apologizes for the outburst, but the damage is already done. At the end of the day, Bong realizes he's in no psychological state to keep working. He's so shaken by the deaths that he decides to take time off from all 3 of his jobs. Walking home, surrounded by a crowd of happy couples, he wonders, is it his fault? And more importantly, what the hell is he going to do with the weight of these 3 deaths on his shoulders anyway? To try and make sense of the mess he's gotten into, he checks the system catalog again and revisits John Kazak's description. And there it was, in bold letters, exactly what he suspected. Crazy murderer. Bong concludes that the guy is indeed a psychopath, but he tries to comfort himself by thinking that, as his summoner, Kazak would never hurt him. Still, the whole situation is way too scary. Gathering all the courage he has left, Bong takes a deep breath and activates designated summon, calling Kazak back. Right then, a system window pops up, asking for a 0 to 5-star satisfaction rating for the character's previous use. Bong finally understands why that star rating section existed on Kazak's status. He thinks about giving just 1 star. After all, the guy turned his life into a living hell, even if he did solve the loan shark problem. Bong's finger hesitates. He can't bring himself to give the minimum rating, feeling like he'd be too heartless, completely ignoring the fact that the guy just decapitated 3 people. Ultimately, Bong's bizarre empathy wins out, and he decides to give Kazak 3 stars. He remembers how his mom worked with customer reviews and how soul-crushing low ratings were. What a complete coward, man. But this guy is gonna evolve, you can bet on it. As soon as the rating is confirmed, John Kazak appears, all smiles and giving a friendly little wave to his master. Super hyped, the assassin thanks him for the 3 stars and swears he'll work even harder to get all 5. Bong just stares at him, baffled by so much innocence and joy coming from a maniac who just dumped 3 bodies. Straight up, he gets real, asking if Kazak was the one who killed the loan sharks. And the guy, with the utmost nonchalance, confirms everything. He proudly says he took care of the problem last night, leaving Bong even more terrified by the assassin's coldness. Suddenly, Bong feels a wave of nausea, his heart pounding 1,000,000 miles an hour. He tries to calm down, remembering the golden rule: Kazak can't hurt him, or at least, that's what he hopes. He then asks how Kazak found out where the gang's office was. The assassin explains that while he was hidden, he planted a tracker on them. Bong deduces it was a stealth ability from Kazak's past, but questions why he went so far. Kazak responds, simple as that. They threaten the master's life, and it's always wiser to eliminate threats proactively. Bong immediately retorts, saying he never ordered any of that. Kazak then brings up the 3rd clause of the 3 summoning principles. Obedience to the master is absolute, but in order to stand down can be ignored if the summoner is in imminent danger. To test this twisted logic, Bong asks, so, if I ordered you to kill me, would you disobey? The assassin smiles and confirms, yes, that's absolutely correct. Now that's when our guy feels the true weight of the problem. Big problem, as Bong points out, is that there was no real, immediate death threat from the loan sharks. He questions if those deaths weren't just a decision based on Kazak's twisted judgment, and the assassin agrees. He explains that the 3rd clause can be interpreted in many ways. From his perspective, those men were leeches who would inevitably kill Bong. So, eliminating them preemptively was a perfectly reasonable judgment. Bong can't take it anymore and explodes. How is that reasonable? That's psychopathic stuff? After a few seconds of silence, he shrugs, apologizing for yelling, completely scared. Kazak waves his hands, saying it's fine and he understands perfectly. Head down, Bong tries to explain why that line of reasoning is dangerous. He asks Kazak to imagine this: they're walking on a crowded street. Bong accidentally bumps into a big, tough guy. The guy, annoyed, shouts something like, "You wanna die, idiot. I'm gonna gouge out your eyes." Obviously, in the real world, that's just an empty threat, but depending on Kazak's free interpretation, this stressed-out guy would end up with a little red bow tied around his decapitated neck the next day. If Kazak starts handing out bows for every offense, soon the whole world will be gift-wrapped. Yikes. Realizing the mess he made and the anxiety he caused his master, Kazak immediately kneels, taking the blame. Bong is startled by the dramatic bow, but he takes the cue to get serious. He tells Kazak to listen carefully. Murdering people doesn't solve problems. In fact, it's only going to get me into huge trouble. The psychopath tries to argue that he was stealthy and no one would ever know, but Bong cuts him off, asking if he's going to stop this madness or not. Kazak responds with terrifying sincerity that he cannot promise that. Our protagonist loses it and starts yelling again. He orders the assassin to promise, in no uncertain terms, unless there is literally a knife to his throat, Kazak is strictly forbidden from killing people based on mere suspicion. Seeing the summoner's fury and despair, Kazak gets serious, nods his head, and says, "Yes, sir, I will use my best judgment." With the weight of carrying indirect blame for 3 deaths on his shoulders, Bong sighs deeply, says it's okay, and ends the lecture. Completely changing the subject, Kazak asks an unexpected question. He wants to know if the summoner has ever considered climbing the tower. This surprises Bong a lot because he had been thinking about exactly that. He knows that exploring the tower is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get rich, but to be honest, he's terrified of that place. It's extremely dangerous, and there's a huge chance he could get disemboweled by a monster. Curious, Bong asks if in the assassin's past there were other summoners who used similar abilities. Kazak confirms yes, there were several, and all of them were incredibly strong and brave warriors. Hearing this, Bong feels an overwhelming shame. He thinks about how other awakened use their abilities to save the world or fight head-on, while he doesn't even have the courage to risk a scratch. Reading Bong's body language, Kazak starts to say, "And you truly are." But the protagonist interrupts him, finishing the sentence, "I know, I'm a pathetic coward." But to Bong's complete surprise, Kazak totally disagrees. The assassin says he's the greatest summoner of all time, no doubt about it, the best he's ever seen. Kazak even grabs the guy's shoulders, enthusiastically saying that a summoner's greatest virtue isn't bravery, but putting safety first. Bong is a bit confused and asks if he's serious. Kazak explains that courage is poison for this class. A summoner who throws themselves onto the front lines is dead weight who can die at any moment, and the rule is clear. If the master dies, the summon disappears with them. Bong finally understands the strategy, realizing Kazak doesn't want him to make any effort on the front lines, telling him to relax. The psychopath will handle all the dirty work. The protagonist's job is just to stay hidden, well protected, to live a very, very long life. This guarantee totally surprises our scaredy-cat summoner. Next morning, as the sun rises, Bong has deep dark circles under his eyes. He didn't sleep well, too busy tossing and turning in bed, caught in the dilemma of whether or not to climb the tower. He reflects on his life. Who am I to try and climb that damn tower? In his head, he should just thank the heavens that his debt disappeared, along with those debt collectors, and move on. The plan is to get a normal, safe job and live a quiet life. If he just works harder, everything will sort itself out eventually. But at that exact moment, his phone rings. It's his dad. Worried and curious, Bong answers and immediately asks if his hip rehab is going well. But during the call, his dad reveals that things aren't easy and he needs to be transferred to a bigger, more expensive hospital. To make matters worse, he drops a bombshell. Bong's mom got fired from her job. His dad tries to soften the blow, telling him not to worry, saying he only called because they missed him, having not heard from their son in a long time. Feeling a lump in his throat, Bong says he'll make time to visit them soon, that they'll eat together, and asks his dad not to overdo it. As soon as he hangs up, a switch flips in his head. All that lack of courage and the safe, quiet life talk vanish in the blink of an eye. To the next scene, and we see Bong completely geared up to climb the dreaded tower. But don't think he's wearing silver armor, nope. He's wearing a full, ultra-reinforced construction safety engineer's uniform, complete with a helmet and a reflective vest. His plan is simple. He'll just go into the first floor, take a super quick peek, and then head straight back home. If it gets too dangerous, he'll turn around and bolt immediately. As he had taken the day off from all 3 jobs anyway, it was the perfect time. But before setting foot in the tower, he needed to call his bodyguard. Only a hesitation kicks in. He starts thinking he doesn't want to bring that bloodthirsty psychopath Kazakh with him. He wonders if it wouldn't be possible to use random summon to call a different person. Who knows, if he gets lucky with the gacha, maybe he'll pull a legendary character who can do the job, but without the head-chopping habit. But to his utter dismay, the system announces that random summon is not available. The skill's cooldown is a ridiculous 30 days. In short, he can only roll the dice for a new character once a month. With no other options, he just has to make do with what he's got. He activates the skill and summons John Kazakh. A bit embarrassed, Bong hopes the assassin can't guess that he tried to switch him out. Playing it cool, he welcomes Kazakh and announces with a trembling voice the big decision: they're going into the tower. Kazakh breaks into a huge, excited smile and praises him. "You truly are brave, master." But right after, the psychopath's face drops and he backs off. "No, wait, I take that back. You absolutely should not be brave, or your life will end up going down the drain again." Bong, sweating cold, asks him not to worry, repeating that they're just going to check out the first floor and bail. Kazakh nods in approval, saying it's a very wise decision. Then, he points to the safety and construction gear the guy is wearing and says he can throw all that rudimentary junk in the trash. Kazakh swears that as soon as they cross the portal, he will be his absolute guide. He guarantees that the master will enter in total safety, be 100% comfortable, and won't need to lift a single finger. Kazakh was born to do all the heavy lifting. Trusting his maniac bodyguard's word, Bong takes a deep breath and presses the system button to enter the tower. He asks if Kazakh is ready, and the assassin confirms, with blood in his eyes. Just like that, the two are transported directly to the first floor of the Korean tower. Only, since our scaredy cat isn't at all used to this bizarre teleportation sensation, he appears in the tower scenario the only way he knows how, screaming at the top of his lungs and crying in terror. Whoa, the portal opens, and a cold panic shoots down Bong Jun-hyuk's spine as he's literally sucked inside. For the first time ever, he's crossing into one of the damn black towers. He's only there because of his family's insane debt and the promise of easy money, but he's so scared, he just wants to vanish. As soon as the transfer finishes, intense nausea hits him hard, dropping the guy on the first floor. It's a desert stretching as far as the eye can see. Kazakh, ever stoic, is right there, assuring his master would soon get used to the feeling. Like it's super normal after almost puking your guts out. He barely has time to compose himself when the system pings. It tells him his physical abilities have leveled up, and combat characteristics are now unlocked. Jun-hyuk feels like a real player. I mean, it finally sinks in that he's now part of this chaotic tower world. The first floor mission is clear. Take out 5 hard-skinned, fat larvae in a few hours. Jun-hyuk, the internet expert, remembers the reports. These things are basically training dummies. Slow, weak attacks, but their skin is like armor. And folks usually took 10 minutes to kill just one. He thinks, if they can do it, so can I, right? All pumped up, our hero announces he's taking on the first larva solo. But Kazakh, the psychopathic assassin who actually cares about him, asks if he really needs to do the dirty work. And that's when Jun-hyuk realizes his blunder. He forgot to bring a weapon. He tries to ask Kazakh for a little dagger, but before he can, the larva, which he swore was a slug, stands up and stares at him like he's a snack. Jun-hyuk loses his cool instantly and screams for help. Without missing a beat, Kazakh appears next to the larva, telling his master to step back and just enjoy the show. He starts throwing his daggers with insane precision, pinning the monsters like they're just pin cushions. Then things really get wild. Kazakh activates his blade explosion skill, and the larvae just blow up into pieces like they never even existed. The guy even finishes with a stylish pose. Jun-hyuk is stunned, totally amazed. Damn, Kazakh was way stronger than he ever imagined, clearing the area in the blink of an eye. Right then, the system chimes. First mission complete, level up, and a few grams of magic stone. But the big deal is the S+ rating and an exclusive platinum emblem. Our protagonist can barely believe it, already thinking the tower is a piece of cake and he'll get rich super fast. What Bong Jun-hyuk, this real man he thinks he is, had no idea about is that his S+ achievement wasn't just for him, you know? That pop-up warning appeared as a global, real-time announcement for all players in South Korea, indicating something super weird and synchronized was going on. Back home, teleported, Jun-hyuk checks his phone's clock and gets a shock. The whole fight only took a few minutes. Kazak congratulates him on his excellent work, and our protagonist, ever modest, says he didn't do anything. But the assassin replies with frightening enthusiasm, "Exactly, and you are excellent at doing nothing, master." Jun-hyuk thinks about how other players must come back from the tower exhausted, while for him, it was easy as pie. In his inventory, he examines the magic stone crystals, a super valuable resource that's already worth a fortune, even with the price being lower in recent years. The Black Towers have been a thing for a long time, and trading these stones is super common. But then he looks at the platinum emblem and nothing. He's never heard of it. Even without knowing what the emblem was, the math doesn't lie. He made bank in less than 10 minutes. Our protagonist is beaming, he can barely believe his luck. Meanwhile, Kazak calmly announces he's going to sit down and watch his favorite drama. Like, work's done, right? Celebrate his glorious day, Jun-hyuk decides to order a delivery feast. Kazak asks if there's spicy pig's trotters, but Jun-hyuk ordered the traditional version. He'd noticed the psychopathic assassin get sick from spicy food. But then Kazak starts to sweat, smelling the pungent spices in the meal. Jun-hyuk instantly gets it. The damn assassin is a total wimp when it comes to spice. Even so, Kazak devours everything, super grateful. During the meal, Jun-hyuk asks if Kazak's formal way of speaking is natural. The assassin seems unsure but figures it's a habit from his time serving his previous summoner. Jun-hyuk laughs like, the guy inherited his ex-boss's quirks. Kazak even offers to change, but our protagonist refuses, confessing that the more he listens, the funnier it gets. They both crack up, and Jun-hyuk starts getting used to the idea of having a cold-blooded assassin under his roof. He realizes he's not even that dangerous, and the tower isn't such a big scary monster after all. Climbing the floors, turns out, seems like a pretty viable plan. The next morning, super motivated, Jun-hyuk draws a diagram titled, "A Real Man's Daily Routine." He decides to quit the heavy manual labor gigs. His new routine is meticulously divided. Sleep most of the day, work as a convenience store cashier in the afternoon, be a waiter at night, and then, in the early morning, raid the tower. Following the schedule, he summons Kazak again. The assassin appears, profusely thanking him for the 5-star rating in the system. Jun-hyuk, pleased, says he'd give 10, and asks if this satisfaction rating is really that important. Kazak explains yes. The better the score, the more exclusive benefits he gets. Like, he could even get a rank promotion, and his chances of being summoned increase drastically. After the brief chat, they both head straight to the tower's second floor. The mission now is to take out fat larvae, but these ones are super agile, which makes Jun-hyuk tense. He asks what he himself should do in the battle. Kazak laughs like, "Do what, master? You don't have to worry about a thing." He assures the guy can just stand there enjoying the view, because he'll handle everything in minutes and get Jun-hyuk home safe. Excited about the royal treatment, Jun-hyuk quickly adds, "Can we order fried chicken and beer when we get back today?" Kazak replies with a resounding yes, of course. And like a missile, Kazak charges at the larvae, slicing and crushing them all without mercy. Our boy watches the bloodbath from afar, once again amazed, realizing Kazak's strength is absolutely insane. And just like that, in a matter of minutes, the second floor mission is a success. The reward drops into his account. A few more grams of magic stone, and to Jun-hyuk's surprise, another S+ notice with another platinum emblem. He's shocked. Another S+ in a row? He starts to question if progression should really be this easy, because his level gain is way too fast. He thinks he could probably clear the tower even during his convenience store breaks at this rate. Without losing momentum, they head straight to the third floor, where Kazak annihilates the ice larvae in minutes, yielding another S+. On the fourth floor, same thing. On the fifth floor, exactly the same thing. Then, upon completing the fifth stage, our boy receives a shocking system alert. Because he just collected 5 perfect platinum emblems, he unlocked a hidden special privilege for accumulating S+ ratings. Jun-hyuk's eyes widen, curious about what absurd privilege this could be. The window flashes in front of him, announcing, "Awakened Characteristic Enhancement." Thanks to this insane bonus, the Master's simultaneous summon limit has been expanded. Long story short. Now, besides that psychopath Kazak wiping the floor with enemies, he'll be able to spin the wheel and summon another ally to the party. Jun-hyuk is hyped about the idea of dual summons. He's thinking about the massive advantage it would give him. I mean, Kazak alone breaks all records, so imagine with 2. But then, he remembers the tiny detail. The summon system has a full 30-day cooldown. Until then, he's stuck with Kazak and just needs to tough it out. Meanwhile, in Seoul, at the Awakened Management Agency, everyone is freaking out. Team leader Jeong Gwang-il sighs, telling Section Chief Lee Min-ah that the Black Tower's global notifications just won't stop. No sooner does he finish than she pops up out of nowhere, startling him, and confirms that notification just went off again. Min-ah tells Gwang-il about another S++ rank achievement, this time on the tower's 6th floor. The team leader realizes that with so many S++ in a row, from the first to the sixth floor, it can't be a coincidence. It's clearly the same person, an unprecedented prodigy. He figures if this keeps up, the international community will go wild, and Korea will have to scramble to keep this talent. Director Park Kyung-soo, a bald, authoritative man, slams the table. He reminds them of the situation's gravity. He explains Korea's biggest record so far was just rank A, so an S++ broadcast globally is a serious problem. The director warns about players being bribed or even kidnapped by other countries. He orders them to find this guy immediately, before Korea loses this rare gem. 2 days fly by. Jung-hyuk is in his tiny studio, asking Kazak if today's challenge is the 8th floor. And there's the darn lethal assassin, ironically doing the dishes, confirming it is. Jung-hyuk thinks the 10th floor is the limit for beginners, the point where the tower stops going easy. So they head to the 8th floor. The mission, take down the red thorn frog warriors. One of these bizarre, leather-clad creatures charges furiously, but Kazak, with his usual agility, destroys it without breaking a sweat. Another S++ rank achievement secured, giving Jung-hyuk more magic stone, an exclusive healing potion, and of course, another platinum emblem. Kazak walks up to Jung-hyuk, all proud, saying he did an excellent job. Jung-hyuk, a bit awkward, admits he did nothing, but thanks him anyway. The assassin insists that just having the courage to enter the tower is enough. Jung-hyuk smiles, happy to have such an efficient bodyguard, but Kazak warns him not to drop his guard. From the second half of the floors, things are gonna get really tough. Jung-hyuk agrees and decides to give Kazak a gift for his effort. He pulls out his wallet and talks about all the cool stuff in the real world, like restaurants and parks. He suggests Kazak go out for a bit before his summon time ends, but with a condition: no trouble, no killing anyone. But Kazak refuses, saying he could never leave Sumner Bong's side. He'd rather stay home and watch TV, which shows how loyal the guy is. Jung-hyuk understands, suggests ordering fried chicken, and the psychopath gets super excited about the idea. While the assassin watches his K-dramas, munching on chicken, Jung-hyuk takes the chance to check his inventory. He decides to give the healing potion to Kazak, since he's the one really on the front lines. The big question now is what to do with all the magic stones, which are already piling up in his inventory, weighing kilos. The guy realizes he's sitting on a small fortune and needs to figure out how to turn these stones into cold hard cash. Time flies, and finally it's the day to face the dreaded 10th floor. Jung-hyuk gets ready, reflecting that he started the tower just to test it out, but ended up climbing 1 floor a day. He remembers yesterday, on the 9th floor, the jungle carnivorous flower was super easy, for Kazak of course. For him, clearing stages became routine, and the S++ reward is just a bonus. It's even relaxing, he thinks, forgetting that the crazy assassin decapitated loan sharks for him just days ago. Without any fear, Jung-hyuk summons Kazak again. The system announces John Kazak's satisfaction rate has hit the max 5 stars. As a bonus, the assassin's stay time in the real world is extended by another hour. Kazak is beaming, promising to serve his master for even longer. With renewed spirits, the two enter the 10th floor. Jung-hyuk feels something different, an intense recalibration of his physical abilities. He senses a mysterious strength and mana overflowing in his gut, wondering if he's finally awakened as an untamed wild horse, a total badass. Taken by this wave of power, he grabs Kazak by the shoulders and proudly declares, "From now on, I'm gonna fight and help you too." Kazak totally freaks out, saying it's impossible and the master shouldn't risk himself at all. He swears if Jung-hyuk gets a single scratch, he'll bash his own head on the ground in shame. Jung-hyuk, puffing out his chest, tells him to relax, reaffirming he's a wild horse. Kazak insists verbal encouragement is more than enough, but Jung-hyuk puts his foot down. This time, they'll fight together. What he didn't expect was a monstrous eye watching him from the shadows. It wasn't just any creature, but a titanic mantis, with a leg several meters long. Faced with that monstrosity, professional coward Jung-hyuk freezes and whispers, terrified, how do other players even defeat something this massive? Losing all his heroic swagger and without an ounce of shame, he turns to the assassin and drops this gem. "You know, Kazak, sending 2 people to squash a mere bug offends my pride. You can handle this ugly thing alone. I'll send you strength from back here." Kazak, confused, replies that it doesn't offend anyone's pride, but Jung-hyuk insists it totally does. Gigantic mantis attacks relentlessly. But Kazak, with surreal agility, dodges its blows, dashes across the creature's legs, and activates his magic eyes. In a blink, using his sword skills, he slices the titanic monster into tiny pieces. And just like that, the 10th floor is conquered. Jung-hyuk's level goes up, he gains more kilos of magic stone, and gets another S++ achievement with another platinum emblem. Kazak strikes an awesome pose, announcing the mission is complete and they're ready for the 11th floor. Jung-hyuk, checking his inventory, notices his magic stones are already in the double digits, and more importantly, he just completed another cycle of 5 platinum emblems. This means he's about to unlock a new special privilege, and the guy is totally stoked about it. Back in his tiny home, the system reveals the prize, the ability to permanently copy a skill from his summoned being. Kazak's list appears on screen, full of powerful attacks like Blade Explosion and Venom Dagger. Jae-hyuk is amazed. But before he can choose a combat skill, Kazak points at the screen and says, with full conviction, that his master should pick Shadow Step. Jae-hyuk asks why Shadow Step, wanting to know if it's a powerful attack. Kazak answers flat out. It's extremely convenient for escaping. If anything goes wrong, you can be quick and discreet and disappear from the scene as fast as possible. Our hero's face falls, offended, like, who does this guy think I am? Do I look like someone who'd run away just to save my own skin? Outraged by Kazak's audacity, Jae-hyuk clicks and acquires Shadow Step without a second thought. I mean, obviously he wants the best possible escape method, right? Kazak claps, praising the wise decision. Trying to salvage some dignity, the protagonist clears his throat and says, as they say, footwork is the soul of any fight. Then he decides to go outside and test the skill. Problem is, skills outside the tower don't work properly. His Shadow Step just turns into slightly nimbler footwork for short distances. He comes home panting and frustrated, complaining, if the system lets summons work in the real world, it should let skills work 100% too. There's no consistency. Kazak, not understanding a thing, just smiles and agrees. I have no idea what you're talking about, but you're absolutely right, Summoner. Another day dawns on the tower climbing routine. Now, we see our guy incredibly nervous on the phone. The voice on the other end identifies itself as the Awakened Management Agency's call center. Jae-hyuk introduces himself, saying he recently awakened. The agent congratulates him, and noticing his nervousness, asks if government agents could visit his residence to help with registration. He agrees, gives his address, and ends the call, probably the bravest decision of his early 20s. Meanwhile, somewhere else, we see Section Chief Lee Min-ah and team leader Jung Gwang-il driving towards Jae-hyuk's address. Jung asks about an awakened evaluation in Daegu, and Lee sighs, saying it wasn't the mysterious S++ record holder. They wonder if the real prodigy will finally show up this time. Jung reaffirms they need to go as fast as possible. If it's the person they're looking for, the order is clear. Recruit him for the elite team, even if they have to offer the agency's top benefits. In his tiny studio apartment, Jae-hyuk wipes everything down, sweating nervously, waiting for his visitors. Someone knocks, announcing themselves from the agency. As soon as Jae-hyuk opens the door, he greets them, apologizes for the cramped space, and invites them in. Jung introduces himself as the team leader and presents Section Chief Lee Min-ah, pointing out that she's also an awakened player. Jung tells Jae-hyuk to feel free to ask questions, but right at that moment, Lee Min-ah steps forward, ignores the formalities, and stares Jae-hyuk straight in the eye. With an intensely serious expression, she drops the bombshell. It's you, isn't it? The mysterious awakened with the S++ records. The silence in the small room is deafening, and the tension cuts through the air. Agent Lee wastes no time. She confronts Bong Jun-hyuk, knives out, and goes straight for it. You're the mysterious S++ awakened one, aren't you? He freezes, totally startled, like, how the heck did she figure that out so fast? A million questions race through his mind. Does the agency have some secret detector for hidden players, or is she just bluffing to see if it sticks? His plan? Deny everything till the very end, no matter what. Man, Bong Jun-hyuk's excuse is so robotic it'd make for an epic slapstick comedy. He tries to play dumb, forcing an awkward chuckle like, an S++ awakened. How crazy, but definitely not me, haha. Agent Lee, who isn't stupid at all, immediately sees he's lying through his teeth. But Leader Jung, seeing his subordinate's blunder, gives her a light tap on the back of the head, which Lee, dodges like a ninja and scolds her for intimidating the poor guy. He apologizes for her behavior. Jun-hyuk, relieved they have no proof, accepts it and realizes it was just a test all along. Agents then start the standard orientation with an institutional video. It kicks off with a cute little mascot introducing herself as Taebae, the official mascot of Korea's Black Tower. Bong Jun-hyuk with that, huh? Look, gets super confused. I mean, it's called the Black Tower, and this thing has a mascot that looks like it's from a kid's cartoon. The mascot then starts explaining the basics. Black Towers are sinister structures that appeared out of nowhere years ago. No one could approach them until the first players showed up. The video explains the tower works like a video game, with floors to be cleared. Players gain superhuman powers inside, and the rewards boost the global economy. But oh boy, the sinister part quickly appears. If a floor isn't conquered in 6 months, the tower collapses and devastates the entire region. That's exactly how Mumbai, the entire city, vanished from the map 3 years ago. So that's the gamble, folks. Keep climbing or face annihilation. Korea, thankfully, only has one tower and is doing well, with the current record on the 44th floor, right behind the United States. The video then makes a dramatic call to action. You, newly awakened, are humanity's next hope. Register and become a hero. Bong Jun-hyuk can only think about how corporate and dull that little PR show is. Time for the truth. Leader Jung asks if Bong Jun-hyuk has actually awakened. Our protagonist confirms, saying he's already entered the tower and even cleared a few floors. He proves it with some magic stones on the table. Then Jung asks, how many floors did you manage to clear? Jun-hyuk, totally chill, just drops, oh, the 10th floor. Whoa, both agents swallow hard right then. The 10th floor was exactly where the mysterious S++ had reached the day before. The tension builds. Bong Jun-hyuk is screwed. Agent Lee, getting suspicious again, asks if he saw the recent global announcement. Bong Jun-hyuk breaks into a cold sweat. In his head, the goal is clear, act natural, show nothing. Then he switches back to robot mode and blinks out, Oh, the S++ record. Yes, I saw it. What an amazing person that must be, right? Leader Jung sighs, trying to calm him down. But internally, his antennas are already up. Is this guy just nervous around us, or is there more to it? Suspicious? Darn it, very suspicious. Not waste any more time, Lee starts explaining the contract details. The agency divides players into two groups, the elite raid team and the general raid group. The general group is more like freelancers, for those who want to do odd jobs and clear lower floors. But the elite, man, that's for players who get serious with the government, tackling the toughest floors in exchange for big bucks, top-notch gear, and endless perks. Bong Jun-hyuk already does the math. If these guys find out I'm the S++, my life will turn into a living hell, with press and cameras everywhere. No way, I hate being the center of attention. Leader Jung then dangles the bait, offering Bong Jun-hyuk the chance to apply for the elite team. All he has to do is use a government camera to record his skill test. But to the agent's surprise, Jun-hyuk interrupts him and states he'd rather stay in the general raid group. Jung's eyes widen, not understanding the guy's decision. Bong Jun-hyuk, head down and putting on an Oscar-worthy show of nervousness, mumbles that the general category is just fine for him. The leader insists, reminding him that the elite's benefits, money, and prestige are infinitely better. But Jun-hyuk sticks to his little coward act. To be honest, sir, I'm not that talented. And that tower is way too scary, you know? For me, just grabbing the basics on the first few floors is enough. Jung begs him to think it over, but Jun-hyuk is unyielding. He's already made up his mind. Watching the pathetic scene, Agent Lee gets totally disheartened. She thinks, so it was another false lead. Many players prefer to farm mid-level floors for easy money and not risk it, but this guy is pathetic. He really doesn't have the guts of an elite. Leader Jung, defeated, apologizes for his persistence and says he'll respect the young man's choice, while Jun-hyuk sighs in relief. But Jung makes one last request. To successfully finalize the registration, the procedure requires the hunter to enter the tower and do a quick run in front of them. It's just for the system to validate the day's awakening. Bong Jun-hyuk agrees to do it, but warns it might take a few hours since he, supposedly, plays defensively and cautiously. Lee Min-ha, thinking he's a coward who'll fail soon, says it's no problem. He can take all the time he needs and they'll wait. Jun-hyuk, donning his makeshift gear, instructs them about the TV and fridge. Soon, he's teleported into the tower, with his plan to throw the agents off starting to roll. As soon as Bong Jun-hyuk is gone, Leader Jung turns to Agent Lee and asks, "So, what's your final assessment of the kid?" Lee crosses her arms and declares, convinced, "It's hard to judge raw talent without seeing someone fight. But psychologically, he's too shy and withdrawn. Every gesture screams cowardice. He'll probably give up before even trying to kill something, especially on the 11th floor." Agent Lee continues, explaining that the 11th floor is a real centipede tunnel, a psychological test for newbies. She's faced the stage herself and comments, "It's not combat hard, but the environment is horrifying. You're forced to slice and smash 100 of those giant, disgusting things to pass." She's sure Jun-hyuk will just cower in the dark and give up. Jung laughs and gets ready to call the director, letting him know another prodigy was just a false alarm. But inside the tower, reality was quite different. Bong Jun-hyuk summons his faithful assassin, and John Cossack appears, all smiles, saying it's an immense pleasure to work with him again. The 11th floor mission flashes on screen: kill 100 tunnel-tail centipedes within the time limit. Failure results in death or surrender. Bong Jun-hyuk looks at that infested darkness and already feels sick. Out of all the monsters, it had to be giant centipedes, and 100 of them. Cossack already draws his blades, promising to clean up the mess in 10 minutes or less, but the protagonist raises his hand and stops him dead. "No way, Cossack, today you go slow, take it easy, and I forbid you from getting an S++ rank. Bring me any crap score, just not an S++. Cossack, confused, asks why. Jun-hyuk explains he needs to play extremely safely to avoid being exposed. The assassin understands and nods. "Understood, my lord. Your wish is my command." Ok begins. At the first attacking centipede, Cossack lunges forward. The problem is, used to destroying everything in seconds, he defeats it almost instantly. Bong Jun-hyuk realizes the assassin's speed, even when he tries to hold back, is just too fast. "Slower, Cossack, don't kill it right away. Play with them, jump over them, just stall," orders the master. Cossack obeys, starting to jump from one centipede to another, not delivering lethal blows, just playing hide-and-seek in the dark. Jun-hyuk smiles, satisfied. "Yes, perfect pace. We'll just barely make it under the time limit this way." But in this moment of distraction, the ground trembles beneath Bong Jun-hyuk's feet. When he looks up, he's face-to-face with titanic centipedes hanging from the cave ceiling, right above him. Terrified, he screams for Cossack and tries to run, but the cave is infested. Several of those horrid, cursed bugs start surrounding him, drooling and staring at him like he's a platter full of fresh snacks. Jun-hyuk's body locks up in sheer terror. He can barely breathe. But suddenly, from the other side of the cave, Cossack spots the ambush. With his eyes glowing red, the assassin explodes in fury. He screams for Sumner Bong to duck and, in a bloody frenzy, obliterates hundreds of centipedes in a single second, slicing the bugs and saving the boy. Cossack screams, furious, "These disgusting worms dared to try and touch my master." Bong Jun-hyuk realizes what just happened. The assassin went into berserker mode, and the plan for a slow clear went right down the drain. Joohyuk tries to intervene, desperate, and shouts with all his might. "Kazak, stop right now, go slower, that's an order." But Kazak, drenched in insect blood, yells back, eyes red with pure fury, "I cannot obey, master. Your safety comes first." That is the first and most absolute clause of the summoning rules. The protagonist's eyes widen, realizing the disaster. If Kazak swept the entire floor with maximum force like that, the result would be another unbeatable record, and his secret would be out in the open. And just like that, after only 10 minutes of pure massacre, the system announces the 11th floor was successfully conquered with a full clear. Bong Jun-hyuk grumbles, "This is so messed up." Back in the real world, in the small studio apartment, Chief Lee and Leader Jung were patiently waiting. Lee checks her watch and comments like, 10 minutes have passed already. He must be running out of there and giving up any second now. But at that exact second, they read the latest global announcement in huge, bold letters. The 11th floor of the Black Tower has been conquered with an S++ rank. Bong Jun-hyuk's room door blinks and the player is teleported back to the living room floor, panting, right at the moment of the revelation. Lee looks up from her phone and stares at him, an expression of absolute shock on her face. Jung, completely lost, stutters, what just happened here?" Lee, her voice trembling, connects the dots. Player Bong exited the tower. And at that very same second, the S++ record popped up in the system. Realizing he'd been caught red-handed and that his easy, quiet life had just gone down the drain, our boy looks up. Desperation Man grants a dark, cursed courage. With a stern face and a threatening gaze, he murmurs a spine-chilling phrase, "I really didn't want to have to resort to this, but I guess you too will have to be." Silenced. The pressure from the management agency is overwhelming, and Joohyuk, desperate to protect his secret and that damn Kazak, would need to silence the agents. The assassin doesn't hesitate for a second, decapitating Leader Jung and Chief Lee in a flash. The scene is brutal, and instant guilt washes over him, with the agents' severed heads confronting him about what he's done. Whoa, what a nightmare. Joohyuk jumps back to reality, realizing it was just another one of his insane paranoias, an intrusive thought that leaves him completely soaked in sweat. Leader Jung, seeing the guy in a panic, asks if he's okay. Joohyuk, quickly covering it up, makes up some excuse about low blood pressure, so no one suspects the real mess in his head. Jung insists the elite team needs someone like Joohyuk, but he, sticks to his lie. The guy tries, with a straight face, to convince the agents that his 11th floor completion was just a massive coincidence, that he simply beat the real mysterious player's time. But Jung isn't stupid. He already knows Joohyuk's story doesn't match the perfect completion times. Even with Joohyuk denying it completely, Jung realizes that pushing him will only drive the guy away. He changes his strategy and asks Lee Min-ah to hand over the contract. But it's not just any contract. It's an ultra-elite special, something that doesn't even exist on the market. Joohyuk's eyes widen as he sees an annual salary of 12 billion won, not to mention a luxurious mansion, VIP status, and legal immunity. It's insane money, absurd power, like becoming royalty in Korea. Contract on the table, but Joohyuk shocks everyone by returning the folder. He refuses this offer that, for anyone, would be the chance of a lifetime. He explains that he hates drawing attention, that the fame and the burden of being an elite are a colossal weight. He says his heart is weak, that climbing the tower is fun now, at the start, but the future is uncertain. The guy's a pathological introvert, with a genuine fear of the unknown up there. Jung, shocked by the guy's refusal, decides to give in and offers the standard contract, realizing that pushing him would just make Joohyuk disappear. In Joohyuk's head, even if everyone called him an idiot for refusing so much money and privilege, he knew the truth. An elite contract means carrying the burden of clearing the most dangerous areas of the tower. He'd be a government tool, and that would trap him forever, taking away his freedom. Meanwhile, at the management agency, Director Park Kyung-soo is furious. He confronts Leader Jung, indignant about the report describing a super-shy and unambitious player, when, over the phone, Jung described unprecedented talent. Chief Lee Min-ah confirms the contradiction. The guy's an S++ record holder, but with the mindset of a cowardly civilian. Director Park doesn't give a damn about the guy's personality. What matters is his unprecedented talent, and he orders Jung to recruit Joohyuk at all costs. Turns out, Joohyuk's cowardice and shyness were just an elaborate act to keep Kazak away from everyone's eyes. He knew that to protect the assassin, he needed to appear as harmless as possible. Back in the tower on the 12th floor, the mission is to face 20 ice spear weasels in a frozen desert. Joohyuk, shivering from the cold, reminds Kazak. The plan is to act with delicacy, taking as long as possible, also as not to raise any more suspicion from the agency. Kazak, as always, obeys the order with the vigor of a loyal servant. But the cold was unbearable, and Joohyuk's teeth chattered from shaking so much. Kazak, seeing his master in such distress, completely forgets the orders to go slow. Worried about a cold, the assassin simply annihilates all the ice weasels in a matter of seconds, turning the mission into a bad joke. Another damn S++ rank, with another platinum emblem, to Joohyuk's despair. Back at home, with the agency calling to confirm the S++ rank on the 12th floor, Joohyuk is furious. He questions Kazakh, who approaches with a towel and hot tea, if he thought he'd watch TV after disobeying him like that. The punishment is immediate. He desummons the assassin back into the void, furious with the guy's stubbornness. But Kazakh's stubbornness cycle doesn't stop. On the 13th floor, a hallway full of traps. The assassin ignores the master's orders for caution, claiming the path was too dangerous to go slow. He simply grabs Joohyuk in his arms, like a princess, and speeds off at super speed, leaping over everything and securing yet another S++ rank. On the 14th floor, same old story, giant bats with sonic attacks. Kazakh, worried about his master's eardrums, massacres everything in a flash, securing another S+ rank. Joohyuk, already looking like he's about to cry and exhausted from fighting the summoned, throws in the towel. The guy, checking his bank statement, nearly faints. In 14 days, he'd earned over 7 million won. Money talks, man. He calculates that by reaching the 20th floor, he'd be earning 1 million won a day. No more shyness, no more pretending to be weak. Joohyuk decides to quit his convenience store job and, finally, unleashes Kazakh to clear everything as fast as possible. The agency already suspects him anyway, so screw it. The focus now is to farm money and get stronger. At the master's green light, Kazakh, excited, obeys the order. On the 15th floor, they face 20 worker goblins. Joohyuk notices the increase in danger. These are humanoid, intelligent monsters that move in groups. If one escapes, the entire horde will be alerted, making discretion even more crucial. But Kazakh is a pro. He tells his master to hide well because he's going to eliminate them all at once. In a flash, the assassin activates his supreme stealth and vanishes into the shadows. Joohyuk watches the invisible slaughter from afar, the goblins falling one by one without even knowing what hit them. Kazakh's skill is so broken that, it's almost cheating. In a few minutes, the floor is cleared, and another platinum emblem is added to Joohyuk's collection. Back at the apartment, he eagerly rushes to check his inventory. 15 perfect, gleaming emblems on the screen. He already knows that every 5 emblems, the system gives a reward, and now, with 15, he gulps, super excited to find out what the new privilege will be. The secret reward for 15 platinum emblems finally arrives, an energy barrier kit. Our hero, curious as ever, equips the item. And then the system explains. It's a protective shield that absorbs damage, has a 5-hour cooldown, and its resistance scales with the user's level. Bong Jun-hyuk realizes that, since the item isn't exclusive to the tower, he can use the super-op barrier in the real world. He thinks about selling the kit for billions of wons and retiring, but greed gets the best of him. He quickly changes his mind, because, hey, if he levels up just a bit more, he could get even better rewards. He turns to Kazakh and asks if they could try for an S++ rank on the 11th floor right away. Kazakh, being more pragmatic, warns him that clearing the stage is a given, but a direct S++ requires knowing the terrain, something he can't promise. This leaves Jun-hyuk a bit undecided. Meanwhile, back at the Awaken Management Agency, Bald Director Park Kyung-gu asks how long it's been since Bong Jun-hyuk hit a new S+ record. Chief Lee Min-ah confirms, it's been 15 days already. Leader Jeong Gwang-il adds that he must be stuck on the 15th floor, just like many other players. The director, being dramatic, laments the cruel fate of giving so much talent to such a shy and timid kid. Young tries to calm him down, reminding him that the difficulty takes a huge leap from the 16th floor and that player Bong hasn't given up yet. Decided to test the energy barrier, Jun-hyuk turns to Kazakh and asks the assassin to stab him in the gut. Kazakh, completely shocked, panics, thinking his master is crazy or wants to get rid of him in some horrible way. Jun-hyuk tries to explain it's just a practical test. After all, it's not like he's asking to die. But Kazakh, in a full-blown nervous breakdown, covers his ears and starts humming, refusing to obey such an absurd order. Right at that moment, Young's phone rings. He answers, and when he hangs up, his eyes are wide with the news. Bong Jun-hyuk is coming to the agency, wanting to use the official player shop. The director, confused, questions why a coward would go there. But then it clicks for him. Jun-hyuk wasn't stuck, but actually farming the 15th floor repeatedly, gathering money to buy decent equipment. Young confirms the theory, reminding him that the kid was empty-handed the last time they saw him. Regretful, the director quickly changes his tune and orders them to give all possible support and sell him whatever he wants for pennies. Decided to test the energy barrier, Jun-hyuk turns to Kazakh and asks the assassin to stab him in the gut. Kazakh, shocked, totally panics, thinking his master is crazy or wants to get rid of him in some horrible way. Jun-hyuk tries to explain that it's just a practical test. After all, it's not like he's asking to die. But Kazakh, in a complete nervous collapse, covers his ears and starts humming, refusing to obey such an absurd order. Annoyed with his assassin's cowardice, our hero decides to handle things himself. He stabs the knife into his own abdomen, but oh wait, he forgot to activate the barrier. Bleeding horribly, Jun-hyuk realizes his mistake, while Kazakh collapses in despair, screaming that he'd rather cut off his own arm than see his master get hurt again. After chugging a healing potion and closing the wound, Jun-hyuk sits on the ground, with Kazakh begging him never to do something so stupid again. After all that chaos, Jun-hyuk agrees not to stab himself anymore and says they can go back to farming. While Kazakh goes far off to annihilate the monsters, clearing the floor in about 10 minutes, our boy decides to make the most of his free time. He starts practicing his overpowered skill, Shadow Step. When he activates it, he feels an incredible lightness in his body, realizing this skill will be perfect for escaping any tight spot. As he excitedly zigzagged among the rocks, getting the hang of Shadow Step, Jun-hyuk suddenly slams on the brakes. He comes face to face with a worker goblin that had managed to hide from Kazakh's massacre in a bush. The goblin stares him down, and out of nowhere, an unforeseen confrontation pops up. The silence shatters when the furious monster leaps to tear off the protagonist's arm in a single bite. Jun-hyuk, in a panic-driven reflex, activates the energy barrier instantly. The darn goblin's teeth smash against the impenetrable shield without causing any damage whatsoever. Realizing he was unharmed, our hero gets a surge of courage. Taking advantage of the monster being stunned, he lands a precise kick to the goblin's face, knocking out 2 of its teeth with a good whack. Across the field, Kazakh, with his super sharp hearing, catches the sound of the blow. He looks back and sees the scene, quietly praising his master's kick. But the next second, his overprotective instinct screams louder. Realizing his master was technically in danger because he'd gotten his boot dirty, Kazakh freaks out and rushes over at light speed to help him. When he arrives, he crushes the goblin and starts scolding Jun-hyuk, asking if he has a screw loose for fighting, even with the kids safe and sound. So, by training skills and secretly saving up money, Jun-hyuk repeated the 15th floor for 2 weeks. He managed to get a bit more used to the movement, and on top of that, he collected exactly 22.5 kilograms of magic stones, which guarantees over 11 million ones. Back to the present, Jun-hyuk calls Jung and asks if it's okay for him to go to the agency's shop now. Jung says absolutely not a problem and insists on sending a car to pick him up, claiming it's a privilege protocol for all registered players, which Jun-hyuk, in his innocence, accepts. The car that picks him up is nothing less than a super luxurious limousine, a ride that's definitely not the standard the government sends for casual players. But Jun-hyuk, in his innocence, thinks everything's totally fine. Arriving at the agency, there's leader Jung waiting for him at the door like a butler. He welcomes him and accompanies him to the entrance, where Jun-hyuk's fingerprint is validated for free access. Jung even offers a tour, but our hero, wanting to avoid interactions, thanks him and says he prefers to look around alone. Stepping into the famous player shop, he's jaw-dropped by the luxury and the shining weapons, finding it weird that the place is completely empty. But he figures it must be because the items are just too expensive. He heads to the counter to sell his loot. The appraiser takes the bags of magic stones and confirms. The market price is exact, 11.25 million ones, and the money would hit his bank account in up to 3 business days. Jun-hyuk, with his eyes gleaming at the shelves, asks if he can use the balance right there as credit, and the clerk, with the biggest smile ever, says absolutely. Meanwhile, in the director's office, Director Park watches the security cameras, and Jung confirms that the shop is empty and that a hidden 90% discount has been applied to every item Jun-hyuk looks at, explaining that the boy is shy and wouldn't accept free items. Nervous and not wanting to stick around too long, Jun-hyuk thinks fast. He'll just buy some defense equipment and get out of there. Back safe in his studio apartment, our boy is all swagger in front of the mirror with his new gear, a sturdy adamantium mace and a pair of basilisk leather boots. But here's the thing, Jun-hyuk isn't dumb. He did his research and knows those boots are worth 20 to 30 million ones, and he bought them for a mere 3 million. Then it starts to click. The luxury limousine, leader Jung greeting him like a butler, the dirt cheap prices. It's clear the government is giving him super special treatment. This makes him uncomfortable because, after all, there's no such thing as a free lunch. But honestly, the boots are just too cool to refuse. He reflects that with the boot's speed, the invisible energy barrier, and shadow step, he's becoming almost untouchable. Before, he promised not to be greedy, but seeing how fast he's getting strong and rich is an irresistible temptation. For better or worse, he's starting to always want more. Next day, extremely motivated, he summons Kazakh again. The assassin appears, bows, and asks with the same insane glint in his eyes if they'll be repeating the 15th floor today. But Jun-hyuk gives a sly smile and announces, playtime's over, they're going to the 16th floor. And best of all, the 30-day cooldown for random summon is finally up. Kazakh's eyes widen, super excited by the news, asking if that means they can call another companion for carnage right now. Jun-hyuk then kneels on the floor, clasps his hands, and says a hilarious prayer to every single divine entity he knows, begging for a good summon before slamming the butt. The very next instant, an absurd flash lights up the studio apartment, and the system processes the gacha roulette. And what appears isn't a spirit, a monster, much less a normal human. It's a guy, yeah, but with titanic proportions. The dude is so giant that his head smashes through the ceiling of the kid's humble home, opening up a huge hole. Jun-hyuk and Kazakh look at each other, terrified by the humanoid monster that just showed up. In the middle of all the chaos and falling debris, the only thing our protagonist can think about is the darn ceiling repair. The portal smoke clears, revealing a colossal figure materializing. Bare feet, muscular legs, giant hands, and a burly, hairy body just appear there. Whoa, Bong Jun-hyuk immediately wonders, Is that monstrosity in front of him actually human or some kind of abomination from hell? Cossack doesn't even let him think and just charges the giant, super pissed off. He lands a flying kick with both feet right on the creature's head, screaming out his hatred. The assassin accuses the big guy of ruining his life in the past and coming back to do it again. The craziest thing is, the giant barely reacts, which just makes Cossack even angrier, beating him senseless. Meanwhile, Bong Jun-hyuk, shocked by the brawl, asks if they know each other. The brute just looks at Cossack and says, in a deep voice, that he feels no pain or even a tickle, making the assassin furious and threatening to stab him. Seeing his house about to be destroyed, Bong Jun-hyuk yells for them to stop. I mean, they'd already broken the ceiling, and that was enough damage for one day. Cossack immediately puts away his dagger and apologizes to the master. So Bong Jun-hyuk decides to talk to the new guest alone. But Cossack tries to warn him that the guy is a total idiot and probably doesn't even know the 3 principles of the summoner. The giant blinks slowly, insisting he's studied. But when Cossack tells him to recite them, the barbarian totally fumbles, showing he really didn't get the idea at all. Cossack facepalms, totally outraged, and insists Bong Jun-hyuk kill the big guy, explaining he can only be summoned again in 100 days. This cruel rule surprises our protagonist, who decides to check the system first. He opens the catalog and there it is. Title of Bull Barbarian, the Great Plains Tribe's meat shield with an R-rank rarity. That's the lowest possible rarity. And the guy doesn't even know his own name, what he does, or what the tower is. Bong Jun-hyuk's frustration grows, but he decides that to get any info out of this brute, he needs to activate the detailed description, just like he did with Cossack, and dive into the guy's memories. The vision that appears is of a pure barbarian warrior from the Great Plains tribe who found happiness in nature's simplest things. The guy was innocent, but had absurd physical strength, able to crush fierce wolves just with his bare arms. Like, seriously surreal brute strength. But here's the thing, because of his incredibly slow reasoning, the barbarian was manipulated by wicked people and ended up forgetting even his own name. The memory shows his tragic end. He was tricked by a fake hero in shining armor, this guy named Arius, who used him as a damn meat shield against the archdemon Hydra. The barbarian resisted the Hydra's deadly breath, ripped off the monster's heads with his bare hands, all while his skin was melting from the acid, just to protect those he thought were his comrades. In the end, he dies dissolved, while his supposed allies mocked his sacrifice, calling him an idiot. That's when Bong Jun-hyuk finally understands the meat shield title. Back in reality, Bong Jun-hyuk feels a lump in his throat. He realizes the cowardice of those who used the barbarian, whose only flaw was being a bit slow. Moved by empathy, he smiles and says, "Welcome, we're going to climb the tower together. First step, a new name. Beard or Mad?" The big guy, confused, points to the second option. Mad is better. Bong Jun-hyuk then hugs him, promising to make his dear Mad Bull very happy. And the giant nods, saying he trusts the master and will do everything he's told. Bong Jun-hyuk turns to Cossack and declares that from now on, the 3 of them are a team. Cossack is shocked at first, but after a quick calculation in his psychopathic mind, he breaks into a sinister smile. Like he realizes Mad Bull could be the best meat shield in the universe, a perfect cannon fodder for the team. Bong Jun-hyuk sighs, trying to focus on the bright side, and decides it's time to head to the 16th floor. Cossack kicks Mad Bull's shin and tells him to answer. But when the giant just nods and repeats, "Yes, sir," the assassin yells at him to stop mimicking. Bong Jun-hyuk watches the two fighting and thinks about the irony. A pathetic coward, a bloodthirsty psycho, and a meat shield who can barely talk. But in the end, he feels like it's all going to work out. The trio finally enters the 16th floor of the Black Tower. The mission this time, eliminate 30 goblin scouts within a 5-hour limit. As they walk, Cossack gives instructions, telling the summoner to activate the energy barrier and be ready to escape with Shadow Step at any moment. After all, goblins use blowguns with poisoned darts and have perfect camouflage. Attacks could come from anywhere. Sure enough, a goblin hidden in the trees shoots a dart straight at Bong Jun-hyuk. But Cossack, with his superhuman reflexes, steps forward, snatches the poisonous dart out of the air with 2 fingers, and shouts that it's an ambush. Dozens of goblin scouts jump from the trees, furiously advancing on the trio. Bong Jun-hyuk, in his usual mode, runs and hides behind a huge rock. Cossack pulls out his daggers, warning that he'll hold the front line. Meanwhile, Bong Jun-hyuk assesses the battlefield, realizing they were waiting, and there are over 50 monsters there. Taking advantage of his new ally, Bong Jun-hyuk points to the battlefield and shouts for Mad Bull to go in and hold the advance. The barbarian warrior, with an unshakable expression, simply says yes. Mad Bull bends his knees and takes a monstrous leap towards the goblin horde. Cossack, who is already slicing through enemies, sees a gigantic shadow covering the ground and finds Mad Bull's legs descending like a meteor from the sky. The giant lands, causing an earthquake that cracks the forest floor. Bong Jun-hyuk watches from afar and is thrilled to see the big guy's physical strength crush dozens of goblins on impact. The surviving goblins fire a rain of poisoned darts at his chest, but Mad Bull doesn't even flinch, crushing their blowguns and saying, annoyed, that it only tickles and Master Bong ordered him to kill them. Watching the barbarian sweep through the horde, Bong Jun-hyuk is perplexed. He wonders if this guy is really just an R rank. If you only consider his brute strength, he should be super rare at least. Come to think of it, the only reason he's considered low rarity is because he's not very smart. Damn system, that's totally messed up. After clearing the 16th floor and heading home, Bong Jun-hyuk decides to congratulate Mad Bull with the best prize ever, an entire box of hot fried chicken. The giant takes his first bite, and his eyes light up with emotion for something so delicious. It's a cute scene until he tries to talk with his mouth full and calls the food Fwango. Cossack in the corner turns up his nose, dying of envy, grumbling that the giant is useless and can't even speak properly. Mad Bull grabs another spicy piece and doesn't even care, devouring it anyway. Bong Jun-hyuk, laughing, tries to defuse the situation, asking if they can't get along for once in their lives. To the master's surprise, the giant swallows the chicken, smiles, and says the summoner is a good person and gives him Fwango, so he'll give his life for the summoner. Bong Jun-hyuk is touched by the giant's pure loyalty, smiling and saying that compared to what they do for him, a little chicken is nothing. Actually, he's the one who really needs their help. But the emotional moment doesn't last. Out of nowhere, Cossack flies across the room and lands a two-footed flying kick right on Mad Bull's face, yelling that it's chicken, not FWANGO, you dumb idiot. Bong Jun-hyuk throws his hands up in despair, telling the assassin to stop picking on the poor warrior. The next day, they head for the 17th floor raid. Still in the safe zone, Bong Jun-hyuk notices a big difference in his own body. Now that he's reached level 17, he feels absolute power rushing through his veins, his heart pounding. He clenches his fists and wonders if the warrior beast inside him is awakening, if it's his turn to fight. Cossack, a few steps ahead, totally kills the epic mood. He warns that monsters around level 20 are the most dangerous, because that's when hunters usually let their guard down. Cossack takes the front line again, and Mad Bull also steps forward, saying he'll protect the master and the master can stay back and rest. Bong Jun-hyuk slumps his shoulders, all his imaginary courage evaporates, and he accepts his fate as dead weight. Ah, okay, fine. The 17th floor mission is dangerous. Eliminate 30 goblin warriors. The difference is, these aren't the weak scouts from before, they're a militarized army. Bong Jun-hyuk, observing the enemy formation, realizes the size of the trouble. Like, he remembers when he read the tower guide, it seemed easier, but seeing 90 monsters armed to the teeth in person is super intimidating. Remembers the advice from online guides. The standard strategy recommended retreating to the safe zone and waiting a few hours. After a while, their formation would disperse, and they'd patrol in small groups of 3. You were supposed to lure and kill small groups one by one until you cleared the floor. But Bong Jun-hyuk looks at the giant beside him and gives a daring smile. That would be the strategy for normal players, but they're not normal, and that takes too long. He points to the entire horde and shouts, Mad Bull, go all out on them. Mad Bull puffs out his chest, activates his immense power, and lets out a deafening war roar that shakes the floor's structure, charging like a runaway train against the goblins. Bong Jun-hyuk watches from afar, cheering and already counting it as a victory. As the massacre unfolds, he leans on a rock, relaxes, and thinks that if they clear this fast, he'll get another S++ rank. And what kind of secret reward will the system give him when he finally collects 20 platinum emblems? Whoa, Meatball just bursts onto the 17th floor, charging straight into the goblin warrior horde. The monsters try to organize, like setting up a barrier of spears and shields, hoping to stop the beast. But man, our big guy isn't playing around. He just uses his shoulder like a battering ram, totally ignoring any enemy tactics. Meatball just obliterates the goblin defense, plowing forward like a runaway, brakeless tractor. Bong Jun-hyuk watches the chaos from afar and gets super hyped. He realizes that when the power imbalance is this absurd, fancy strategies are worthless. It's like 1,000 bicycles trying to stop a tank. The giant's performance is surreal and terrifyingly effective. And with all that mess, the 17th floor mission is completed with a resounding success. S++ for sure, and another platinum emblem for our protagonist's collection. Jun-hyuk is there, celebrating how easy it was. But Cossack, man, he watches everything with a sideways glance, looking more and more worried about his summoner's path. You can just smell trouble in the air, right? Without wasting any time, they head straight to the 18th floor, where the mission is to dispatch 30 goblin assassins. Right off the bat, Bong sends Meatball after the monsters again, to break their formation, just like on the previous floor. But check it out, things change quickly. The problem is these goblins are masters of stealth, and Meatball, with all his muscle mass and zero subtlety, even senses their presence at first, but loses sight of them in the blink of an eye. He gets confused, like a bulldog trying to catch a squirrel. Bong Jun-hyuk realizes right away, this floor won't be as easy as he thought. The giant, frustrated, grumbles as he tries to hunt down where those cowardly vermin hid. And that's when Cossack flashes a sly smile. He was just waiting for a chance to show what he could do after Meatball stole the show on the previous floor with his dumb and ignorant strategy. Now, he's gonna clear his name and show the summoner what a real elite tactic looks like. Those goblins' stealth? PFF, it's not even close to his. He activates his own stealth abilities and enters the cat and mouse game. Bong realizes that having the two compete like this is working perfectly, stimulating a healthy competitive spirit between the summons, or maybe not so healthy. Either way, he decides he needs to keep improving his own advantages. After all, he's almost level 18 and feels his wilder side, repressed for so long, is finally begging to be unleashed. He studied the strategies a lot before entering this floor, especially the low-level stealth of the goblin assassins. Bong is sure that if he concentrates well, he can predict the goblin's movements. He thinks to himself that he has nothing to fear. After all, he practiced the shadow step until he dropped while farming the 15th floor. His confidence, man, is through the roof. He feels totally prepared for direct combat, ready to show that it's not just the summons who can kick butt. Carried away by this false confidence, the guy charges a goblin assassin. But obviously his training was garbage and he messes up the move grotesquely, giving away his position on a silver platter. To make matters worse, he even loses his balance and trips like a fat duck. But by pure luck, while trying to steady himself, he raises his weapon and hits the monster right in the head. A goblin assassin downed. Our boy celebrates like a genius, saying everything went exactly as planned, with a million air quotes, of course. Either way, he'd done his part, and the darn goblin was down. No sooner does he finish bragging than another goblin assassin appears out of nowhere, dropping right on top of him, ready to finish the job his buddy couldn't. Whoa, Bong Jun-hyuk barely had time to breathe before he was in trouble again. The hunt wasn't over, and now, the hunter became the hunted. Meanwhile, up ahead, Cossack was having a blast, slicing through the goblin horde. Reaching kill number 27, he realizes only 3 were left. Meatball, still unable to find anyone, out of sheer rage starts punching every possible corner and by pure luck crushes the remaining 3. The giant shouts that he wants to help more, but Cossack tells him to get out of the way because he's just being a nuisance. That's when the rascal realizes, wait, where's Summoner Bong? Oh boy, the drama begins. While the 2 summons were bickering for nothing, our boy was fighting for his life. The goblin's surprise attack is blocked at the last second by his energy barrier. He gulps, realizing things would have gotten very, very ugly without that shield. His headman would have been split open. The danger was real, and his luck immense. Suddenly, an insane rush of adrenaline takes over Bong's body. The goblin's blade movement seemed to slow down in his eyes. It's a bizarre feeling like time around him slowed down just for him. The guy manages to dodge and land hits as if the monsters had a target drawn on their foreheads. Everything becomes way too easy. And with that, he secures another absolute success. Rank S++ on the 18th floor of the tower, and another platinum emblem received. Cossack rushes desperately towards his master and is shocked when Jun-hyuk, all proud, announces he landed the final blow on that goblin. Instead of being happy, the assassin drops to his knees and starts crying in disgust, terrified by the risk the summoner took. Back in the real world, at the management office, another worldwide announcement echoes through the agency system. The 18th floor has been cleared with rank S++. Director Park Kyung-soo is just buzzing with joy, man. He says the kid is unstoppable and was definitely preparing meticulously over the last few weeks for this floor-jumping spree. Excited, the director even jokes about revealing his identity to the media right now and shouting that the S++ record holder is his employee. Leader Jung nearly has a heart attack and begs the boss not to say that, not even as a joke. Chief Lee agrees, warning that it would be extremely dangerous if his identity leaked. The director laughs, says it was just a joke, but confesses he's super proud of the kid. Jung concludes by saying that Bong Jun-hyuk has become a special player who should be treated with even more care than elite teams. That day, it was all over TV. Newspapers announced that new winds were blowing in Korea. After a 20-day hiatus, the incredible milestone of 18 consecutive S++ rank clearances happened, an unprecedented record that was rewriting the tower's history. Anchors estimated the mysterious player was already on level 19, and not just the hunter community, but the entire nation wanted to know who he was. Watching all this in the studio apartment, Cossack simply turns off the TV, letting out a long sigh of worry and disgust. Bong Jun-hyuk, already nervous about the heavy atmosphere, asks him to stop sighing and just say what he's thinking. Cossack stares at him and says in a gloomy tone that his master man is too fast. Bong blinks, confused, not understanding. What do you mean too fast? Cossack explains that the speed at which he's awakening his combat talent is, terrifyingly fast. Our protagonist lets out a nervous, disbelieving laugh. Talent? Who are you talking about? It's definitely not me. You must be kidding, I don't have any talent at all. But Cossack was dead serious, man. He warns that the shadow step Jun-hyuk executed at the end of the fight was so perfect that even he himself would have trouble imitating it. And that's exactly what makes everything more dangerous, because Cossack lays it out. Don't be fooled, summoner. You'll start finding combat fun, you'll gain confidence, and the danger grows in direct proportion. A hunter who gets too brave becomes an easy target for monsters. He reminds the kid of the promise they made at the very beginning. Safety first, survival above all else. Bong nods affirmatively, saying he remembers that he would never do anything dangerous and that he'll follow the plan to the letter. But Cossack keeps staring at him, with a terrible premonition that his summoner is still going to pull off something big, and that his life protecting him is going to get a lot harder. Summoning Meatball and Cossack in Bong Jun-hyuk's apartment quickly turns into total chaos. The brute starts provoking the assassin, calling him a crybaby. And Kazakh definitely doesn't forgive, does he? Rage takes over him, and he lunges at Meatball with a huge kick, showing his sadness turned into pure fury in seconds. The brawl explodes, and Joohyuk's apartment goes with it, furniture getting wrecked. Oh, but the real last straw is when those two jerks hit the fridge, which he just bought with his tower earnings. Joohyuk freaks out, begging them to stop, and in a blink, he unsummons them before the rest of the place turns to dust. After that awkward silence, Joohyuk can only stare at the stew his mom lovingly made, now spilled all over the floor, and feels the weight of that day. To escape the mess and catch a break, Bong Jun-hyuk decides the next day it's time to visit his parents. He knows he needs a breather from his summoner life. Barely opens the door and runs right into his dad, who doesn't miss a chance to tease him, saying he hardly ever visits. His mom, bless her heart, comes in and immediately defends her son, saying he's too busy. Joohyuk asks his dad how his hip is, and the old man in his usual way jokes that old people's bones don't mend fast. As his mom heads back to the kitchen to make him another stew, she mentions that Minhyuk, the youngest, went out to buy tofu. During dinner, Joohyuk tries to subtly check things, asking if things are tough, thinking about his mom's layoff and his dad's bills. But his mom, just smiles and tells him not to worry, she'll figure it out. Joohyuk then drops a hint it'd be great if I became an awakened hunter, right? And whoa, his dad slaps the table, laughing so hard, mocking that his son is as timid as he is. Minhyuk, his younger brother, who just arrived, laughs along, and his mom, annoyed by the three of them being so cowardly, asks if they're proud of it. But his mom, who's no fool, quickly changes the subject, asking why he wasn't working that day. Joohyuk, sweating cold, tries to play it cool, stammering that it was his day off after all, he'd quit everything. His mom narrows her eyes, sensing the lie, but with that motherly love, she decides to trust him but makes a serious demand. He must never ever get involved with loan sharks. And Joohyuk almost chokes on his food, remembering he'd already messed up that way in the past. Quickly, he tries to change the subject, asking about her layoff. Whoa, his mom's face instantly drops as she explains she was fired for cussing out some rich lady who treated her like a servant. Joohyuk smirks, proud of his mom, who's always been strong-willed and doesn't take crap from anyone. His dad, meanwhile, raises his mug, bragging that his greatest achievement in life was having the guts to ask her out. Bong Jun-hyuk mentally concludes that he and his brother are living proof of their dad's beta male gene, and that the secret about the tower is best kept for now. At the end of the day, Joohyuk says goodbye to his family, and before leaving, hands a fat envelope to Minhyuk, asking him to give the money to their parents and make sure they don't overwork themselves this month. He knows his family needs some help. His brother holds the money and turns all red, making Joohyuk think he's embarrassed to thank him for paying his college tuition. Bong Jun-hyuk, all generous, tells the kid to chill, but Minhyuk looks up and drops the truth. He wanted his share of the money too. Joohyuk rolls his eyes, realizing his brother's a freeloader, but since money isn't an issue now, he gives another stack of bills to his brother, warning him not to waste it. After leaving his family, Joohyuk feels his desire to do things right and get rich just intensified. He decides to stop by the Awakened Management Department store, remembering Leader Young's warning to always call first. But with the energy barrier activated, he feels safe and goes anyway, knowing he needs some serious defense for floors above 20. He heads straight to the defense section, picks a giant shield, but the attendant immediately drops the price, 100 million won. Whoa, Joohyuk's eyes widen, thinking it's outrageous. The smart attendant shows him an adamantium shield and club combo, lighter and way more affordable. Joohyuk tries it, thinks it's perfect and stylish, and decides to take it for 40 million. He's shaking at the price, but buys it, thinking interacting with the attendant is 100 times more stressful than facing a goblin horde. But the piece doesn't last long. Leaving the store, a guy stops him, introducing himself as Choi Ho-sung, a hunter. He asks Joohyuk if he's a rookie and what floor he's on. Joohyuk, wanting to be discreet, says he's on the 10th floor, while Choi, all excited, reveals he's already on the 30th. Choi Ho-sung offers to give Joohyuk any tips he might need, seeming like the most helpful guy in the world. Bong Jun-hyuk thinks he's the typical popular, extroverted type, but refuses the help, saying it's not hard yet. As Choi leaves, Joohyuk, with a tiny bit of envy, concludes that with so much confidence, the guy definitely must have a pretty girlfriend. Back at his apartment that night, Joohyuk checks his status and sees he's finally reached level 19. Excitement kicks in right away. He can challenge the 19th floor the next day and finally test out his new shield. As the two laugh about the brute's fate, Kazakh suddenly stops, sniffing the air with a serious expression. Joohyuk, all happy, offers him some meat buns he just bought. But the assassin, face full of instinct, asks if the master holds a grudge against anyone, a question that confuses Joohyuk, who claims to be the most peaceful guy in town. But Kazakh isn't distracted. He draws his daggers and whispers that someone's outside, oozing pure murderous intent towards the master. Joohyuk freezes instantly. A second later, there's a knock on the door, and a familiar, overly friendly voice asks if anyone's home. Joohyuk, being smart, tells Kazakh to hide in the bathroom right away. But before he could even move, a violent shot blows up the doorknob, and the door is kicked in forcefully. The intruder walks in, and whoa, it's that Choi Ho-sung guy, his nice guy mask completely dropped, pointing a pistol straight at our protagonist's forehead. The jerk sneers, saying Joo-hyuk is just a naive loser, too easy to follow. Joo-hyuk, trembling, asks why he's attacking, but Choi cuts him off, hitting his forehead with the gun barrel and demanding the energy barrier bracelet, threatening to shoot. Joo-hyuk takes a deep breath, and the scene takes on a new weight. His fear vanishes, replaced by a cold expression of pity. He thinks poor Choi has no idea that by pointing that gun, he's actually committing suicide, while Kozak's silver blades gleam in the dark bathroom, mere inches from the villain. That damn Choi Ho-sung, this item broker who thought he was so clever, shows up in front of player Bong with a weapon, all confident. He figures the kid, frozen with fear, will hand everything over without a second thought, just like any other newbie. What he doesn't get is that, actually, he's the one in hot water. Choi orders Bong to give him all his valuable items, threatening to give him a good beating. But then, out of nowhere, Kozak, who's not messing around, whacks Choi on the back of the neck with his dagger hilt, knocking the thug out cold. Player Bong, relieved, praises Kozak like, "You were amazing, dude, good thing you didn't kill the guy." Kozak, putting his dagger away and a bit confused, asks why his master thought he'd do something like that. Bong, taking a deep breath, explains he was scared Kozak would just slice the guy's throat without thinking, like some bloodthirsty minion. Kozak, offended and with his arms crossed, swears he'd never do anything without a direct order from his lord. Bong then realizes Choi Ho-sung is actually a black market item broker, a criminal who profits by robbing awakened outside the tower. Player Bong, thinking about it, realizes his ability to summon in the real world is totally broken, a real cheat. After all, most awakened are just as vulnerable as regular civilians outside the tower, since their protections don't work 100%. He gulps, imagining the danger he would have been in without Kozak. Meanwhile, deep down, Kozak just wanted to rip off Choi Ho-sung's head and wrap it up as a present, but the rules are clear. Over at the player management department, Director Park, the bald guy, asks Jeon Gwang-il if player Bong stopped by the shop again. Gwang-il confirms, and the director wants to know what he bought. The team leader opens his clipboard and reports, Bong got an adamantium shield and mace set. He comments that the kid could have gotten everything for free if he'd signed the elite contract. The director then orders them to prepare a full set of high-level heavy armor to give to Bong as a gift, hoping it'll encourage him to close the deal soon. But then suddenly, Gwang-il's phone rings. He apologizes for the interruption and answers it. As soon as he hears the report from the other end of the line, the guy goes pale and explodes. "What the hell did you just say?" He hangs up and dashes off like a madman towards player Bong's place. While driving at full speed, Gwang-il blames himself. He knew something bad would happen. He should have forced the kid to sign the contract and assign bodyguards from the start. If anything happened to Bong, Korea would be screwed. Back at the studio apartment, police sirens flash through the window. 2 cops are in the living room, handcuffing Choi Ho-sung, who finally woke up. The thug, still a bit groggy, looks at the cuffs, panics, and starts yelling that he's innocent, that Bong is a psychopath, and that he's the victim here. Player Bong tries to defend himself, but the officer warns that the homeowner, our protagonist, that is, will have to go to the police station to give a statement and clear up the mess. Poor Bong almost cries, scared of being wrongly arrested. But at that exact moment, the door bursts open and the savior of the day appears, panting, team leader Jeon Gwang-il. Player Bong sighs in relief, recognizing the agent. To everyone's surprise, that damn Choi also recognizes the national agency team leader. Thinking the authority figure would help him, the criminal starts yelling for Mr. Young to save him, claiming he'd been kidnapped and robbed. But before Choi could finish his cynical sentence, he gets backhanded so hard his head snaps around. Gwang-il, huffing with rage, starts cussing out the assailant with every name in the book. After he stops hitting, with his hand red and the criminal in shock on the floor, Gwang-il doesn't even listen to Choi's whimpering. He turns to the police officers and gives the order. "Get this piece of trash out of here right now. The Federal Intelligence Agency will be here soon. We're taking him into custody and bringing him in for our interrogations." Hearing Intelligence Agency, Choi realizes his life is literally over. It's common knowledge that federal agents don't hesitate to use heavy torture to extract confessions for awakened-related crimes. Terrified, the thug throws himself to the ground, kissing Gwang-il's shoes and begging for mercy. Gwang-il kicks him aside and tells him to shut up, warning him that he's a repeat offender and no one will dare to defend him. The officers drag the criminal outside. As the dust settles, Gwang-il takes a deep breath, changes his expression to that of a worried uncle, and asks player Bong if he got hurt. The kid, relieved, says no, he just got a huge scare. Gwang-il bows and sincerely apologizes, swearing he'll make sure to meticulously prepare everything so something like this never happens again. In his head, the team leader makes a definitive decision. They can't postpone the elite contract for even one more day. He needs to protect the kid as fast as possible. Next day after the scare, player Bong gets ready for the tower. He summons Kozak, and the assassin immediately asks what happened with that piece of trash from yesterday. Bong explains that everything worked out, the police took him away, and the matter was resolved. Kozak, with sparkling eyes, asks if he was sentenced to death. The kid says no, it wasn't anything like that. Cossack insists on knowing the detention location, offering a little visit, but Bong scolds him, telling him to forget about it once and for all and not dare to do anything stupid. Then, he activates the second slot and summons the barbarian meatball, who pops up and immediately asks if they can start the 19th floor fight. 19th floor, man, it's full of goblin shamans. To be honest, they're not much in close combat. No direct attack magic, just relying on curses and weak spells. The only real danger is the cumulative curses. The combat starts. A squad of goblin shamans begins chanting, unleashing a purple mist of curses. The barbarian meatball doesn't waste time. He fills with air and lets out a scream so strong and loud that the sound waves literally evaporate the curses in the air. Player Bong watches with his mouth open like, this guy dispelled magic energy just with the raw force of his scream? How insane. Right behind the giant, Cossack whispers to the barbarian meatball, remember what we agreed on back at base? We need to clear this floor as fast as possible. Meatball nods, replying that he remembers and they can't let the master fight. With that, the two dash off like psychos to annihilate the goblin shamans at light speed. In the back, Player Bong raises his adamantium shield, adjusts his mace, and strikes an epic pose. Finally, it's my turn. I'm ready for combat. Just as Player Bong takes his first step, ding, the system notification flashes on screen, 19th floor cleared successfully. Bong freezes, a drop of sweat rolling down his forehead. What the hell is going on here? He looks ahead, and there's Cossack wiping blood from his blade and asking cynically, so master, how was it? Our boy man, he gets it all. These damn guys, they conspired to finish the fights in seconds just so I couldn't get into combat. They're openly sabotaging me. He huffs with rage at being tricked by his own summons. The next day, same story. It's time for the feared 20th floor, famous among hunters as the Great Talent Evaluator, a brutal leap in difficulty. At the entrance, Cossack blocks Player Bong and warns, Master, this place is extremely dangerous. All kinds of goblins appear here. Scouts with arrows, max-level tactical warriors, stealthy assassins, shamans, and huge hobgoblin bosses. Please, you must wait here in a safe spot. The barbarian meatball steps in front too, blocking the view. The little guy is right, Master. Stay here safe while I kill them all. The 20th floor mission appears, defeat 100 goblins and hobgoblins within a 10-hour limit. Cossack, smiling, says he's gonna start the massacre. But Player Bong is already fed up with all that overprotection. He can't stand being treated like a paperweight, just watching others have all the fun. The guy is determined to fight, no matter what they say. Two guardians rush off and dive into the enemy horde. As soon as they leave the safe area, attacks start coming from all sides. Arrows, spears, and spells rain down from afar. In the back, Player Bong gives a defiant smile. Did they really think I'd just watch again? No way. Activating Shadow Step, the kid vanishes from the safe area as if it were nothing. In a flash, he appears flying right onto the barbarian meatball's back, using the giant as a springboard. Get out of the way because now I'm in the game, the protagonist shouts. The barbarian meatball gets a huge scare. Bong leaps over the giant's head, brandishing his mace with shield raised. Finally, I made it to the front lines, the kid thinks, feeling like the greatest hunter on earth. From the other side, slicing through goblins, Cossack turns his head, sees the kid falling into the middle of the enemy horde, and goes into absolute panic. He starts screaming with all his might, Master. For God's sake, stop this, kill yourself like that. Jun-hyuk's journey wasn't always about slicing monsters and digital glory. Back then, he was the kind of kid life just kept knocking down, a classic introvert who'd rather be alone than face any confrontation. While other kids fought over toys, he'd just accept the loss, building up this passivity that stuck with him all through high school. His family's poverty was a constant shadow, turning every lonely school lunch into a reminder he didn't belong anywhere. This fear of changing his own reality. That's what really defined him before all this madness started. The contrast now is just bizarre, and he really feels the weight of that irony while facing the tower's chaos. For someone who couldn't even hold a high school bully's gaze, being in the middle of a dungeon should be a nightmare. But Jun-hyuk found a comforting secret. Monsters aren't people. They don't carry the weight of social expectations, judgment, or the anxiety that comes with human relationships. In his head, these beasts are just variables in a video game algorithm he needs to brute force his way through to get that sweet loot at the end of the day. Even with Cossack practically having a heart attack from worry, the kid decides it's time to test his own limits against the goblin warriors. He ignores all the safety warnings and charges forward with confidence that borders on recklessness. But the results? Undeniable. When the first spear comes his way, he activates Shadow Step with surgical precision, teleporting right into the creature's blind spot and finishing the job before the body even hits the ground. He starts zipping around the battlefield, showing such mastery of the technique that even Cossack, a veteran assassin, is left completely speechless. Here's the thing, his courage has a very short shelf life, and he just hit its limit. When a rain of poison arrows comes straight for his back, the sound of them hitting his adamantium shield and energy barrier acts like a cold shower for his excitement. Cold sweat runs down his back as he realizes that, without that elite gear, he'd already be stretched out on the ground like Swiss cheese. That feeling of being an invincible hero vanishes instantly, replaced by the old survival instinct that tells him to run and scream for help like his life depends solely on his lungs. Panic takes over, and he races towards the cliff, burning through the rest of his mana with Shadow Step as the goblins close in around him like a hungry pack. Just when he accepts his time is up and a blade flashes near his face, Mad Bull lands like a comet of flesh and bone. The giant uses his colossal body as a human shield, or rather, a barbarian shield, protecting his master from a barrage of attacks that would have been fatal. It's the kind of raw loyalty only a high-level summon can provide. While Mad Bull is wiping the floor with the enemy's frontline, Kozak decides he's played enough and joins the party in style. He praises Jun-hyuk's performance as bait, even though the kid was more desperate prey than a brilliant strategist. Up on the mountain, a squad of shamans starts prepping explosive spells, but the assassin is too fast to let them finish casting. In a flash of pure speed, he decapitates all the goblins' magic support, making sure the bulk of the enemy army is reduced to nothing in a matter of seconds. Dust barely settles, and the ground starts shaking with an intensity that makes Jun-hyuk's teeth rattle. The system has already hit the 100-kill mark, which can only mean one thing: the owner of the house has arrived to collect. What appears before them is the Hobgoblin Chief, a long-legged, densely muscled aberration that represents the final stage of the species' evolution. It's the kind of boss that would make any regular hunter rethink their life choices. But for our little protagonist's summons, it's just the next obstacle on the path to treasure. The coordination between the summons is almost artistic to watch, if you ignore all the blood, that is. Mad Bull charges fearlessly, ignoring the boss's giant sword to grab the beast's neck with his massive hands, immobilizing the hobgoblin. From above, Kozak dives in with a smirk, knowing the job is almost done, and buries his daggers into the creature's eyes before separating its head from its body. The system confirms their victory with a satisfying chime, dishing out 2 kilos of mana stones and a super rare healing potion as a reward for the slaughter. With the 20th floor properly cleared, Jun-hyuk faces the reality that his attempt to fight on the front lines was more of an unnecessary scare than actual help. Watching his 2 subordinates absolutely shred a boss in seconds destroys any illusion of grandeur he'd had minutes earlier. He thanks the duo, receiving promises of eternal loyalty and shouts of devotion that verge on overkill. But what really matters is the license for the 21st floor, and the new platinum emblem now shining in his inventory. While the kid goes back to his normal routine, the outside world is absolutely on fire because of him. Headlines across all South Korean newspapers are screaming the same thing. The 20th floor of the Black Tower was pulverized by an S++ class player in record time. In the Awaken Management Agency offices, the mood is one of absolute urgency. The director knows that having an asset of this level is immense prestige for the country, but also a logistical nightmare. Since the entire world will try to get their hands on this prodigy, they can barely even identify yet. The government's strategy now is to secure Jun-hyuk's loyalty through what he values most: his family. Leader Jung presents a detailed report on every relative, from the father who needs medical rehabilitation to the youngest brother about to join the army. The plan is to shower each of them with disguised benefits, but the main focus is his mother, Hong Jia-ma. Apparently, she's the real authority of the house, a woman with such a strong personality that she makes even our powerful summoner shake in his boots. And the government is willing to use their entire budget to keep her happy. Oblivious to all the high-stakes political games, Jun-hyuk is facing a much more domestic challenge: hiding 2 elite assassins from a delivery driver. When the doorbell rings with the feast he ordered to celebrate, he has to shove Kozak and Mad Bull into the bathroom to avoid awkward questions. The delivery guy is shocked by the sheer amount of food and even sends a complimentary bun. But Jun-hyuk, at the peak of his new financial status, can only complain about the restaurant's stinginess for not sending loyalty coupons. With the coast clear, the trio finally attacks the mountain of fried chicken. Mad Bull tries the sweet and sour sauce for the first time and is genuinely amazed by the experience, while Kozak doesn't miss the chance to unleash his sarcasm, telling the giant to eat with a little more manners. It's a strange moment of peace, where a summoner who's changing the fate of a country shares dinner with 2 killing machines who, at that moment, are only interested in who gets the last piece of chicken. After stuffing his face, Jun-hyuk decides to check his progression tab in the system and ends up getting a shock. He realizes he's accumulated exactly 20 platinum emblems, which just unlocked a special milestone on his journey. The system glows intensely, signaling that a special privilege is ready to be claimed. But instead of a weapon or a buff, what appears on the screen is a simple, mysterious random box. Now, the question is whether this is a blessing or just another way for the tower to mess with his luck. The system throws this random box right at Bong Jun-hyuk's face, explaining he'll get 3 totally random items. He stands there, staring at the endless list of possible rewards, trying to figure out if the game actually wants to help or if it's just messing with him. For someone who lived in poverty, getting something without effort feels too good to be true. Virtual roulette has everything, from basic stuff like herbs and common stones to gear that would make any elite hunter drool. But what really shines at the bottom of the list are the broken items, like the rune that levels you up without fighting and a ticket to skip entire tower floors. The ultimate prize, though, is the ticket that changes a summon's grade. This would turn Bong into a luxury spectator, watching his monsters clean house all by themselves. And he opened it, his heart practically jumped out of his mouth. But the first prize was a cold shower, 10 kilos of mana stones. He slumped his shoulders instantly, since that's something you can farm with a bit of patience. But he quickly cheered up, remembering this mountain of stones is worth 5 million won on the market. It won't change his combat destiny, but it makes his bank account much healthier. The second reward already improved the mood, giving Bong an active skill called Primordial Thunderhammer. He realized he finally had a heavy offensive attack of his own. And the best part? The description said it was a growth technique. This means the more he trains and uses it, the more destructive this lightning will become, finally taking him out of the vulnerable support role. To top it all off, the system decides to bless the boy with the summoning rune for grade evolution, the real jackpot of the box. He jumps for joy, because this was exactly the miracle he needed to permanently level up his personal army. With an item like that in hand, he has the power to turn a common ally into an absolute legend, completely changing the rules of his climb. Now the problem is deciding who gets the gift. Cossack, who's already a super rare assassin and would become even more broken? Or Meatball, who's just a low rank but has a lot of heart? He scratches his head, thinking about the awkward tension he'd create if he chose one over the other, since both have strong personalities. In the end, prudence wins out. He decides to store the rune in his inventory to use it in private, avoiding a jealousy war between the two brutes. It's time to learn this thunder hammer skill, and the process isn't subtle at all. The system injects all the technical knowledge and muscle memory directly into Bong's brain. He feels a sharp pang in his head as images of how to wield the club and channel mana permanently fix themselves in his mind. In seconds, he goes from an amateur who just swung a club to someone who truly understands the science behind a devastating blow. Pumped about his new toy, he decides to test the technique right in the middle of his living room. He strikes a heroic pose, shouting the skill's name like he's on a battlefield, but the silence that follows is awkward. He totally forgot the basic detail. Combat skills are blocked outside the tower. Cossack just stands there in the corner, peeling an apple, looking at his master like he's watching a complete idiot embarrass himself alone. And Bong tries to cover up the situation by saying he gained an attack skill. Cossack's reaction is the complete opposite of what he expected. The assassin totally collapses, even dropping his snack. In his head, a master who knows how to fight is a master who'll get into unnecessary danger. For Cossack, seeing his protected one on the front lines is the start of a logistical protection nightmare he's not willing to live through. Mood gets heavy as Bong reflects on his ally's exaggerated panic. He remembers a summoner's trait usually leaves combat to the monsters. Cossack carries a deep trauma from a previous master, a formidable warrior, who ended up dying and leaving their world destroyed precisely because of that arrogance of fighting personally. As much as Bong wants to feel powerful with his new club, he understands that for his summons, his life is the most precious and fragile thing there is. Determined not to be treated like a delicate baby, Bong summons the two for a frank talk the next day. He wants to set boundaries and show he can now defend himself, hoping they understand his need for evolution. However, Cossack shows up with that aura of someone about to give a 3-hour sermon. He's clearly unhappy with the idea of his master risking himself on the upper floors of the tower. That's when Cossack drops the bomb about the principles of summoning, warning that he's about to commit the sin of disobedience for a greater good. He explains there's an internal rule where the summoner's safety will always override any direct attack order or risky command. Bong starts to sweat cold, realizing his own servants are about to establish a protective dictatorship to prevent him from even touching a monster. Out of nowhere, the giant meatball delivers such a tight bear hug that Bong can barely breathe. This proves the conspiracy to keep him out of the fight is very real. Cossack even corrects the barbarian, complaining he was supposed to do that only inside the tower, not in real life so clumsily. The poor summoner finds himself surrounded by 2 bodyguards who decided the best way to serve their master is by completely immobilizing him. Seeing that brute force won't work against these two, Bong resorts to the only weapon he has left, emotional manipulation. He puts on his best puppy dog eyes and starts a teary speech about how humiliating and boring it is to just watch from the back while they do everything. After much insistence and promises to be extremely cautious, Cossack eventually gives in. But he makes it clear that if even a single hair is at risk, he will personally intervene and decapitate everything. Finally, they step onto the 21st floor, a dense forest where the mission is to exterminate 20 forest orcs. Cossack does a quick tactical analysis, saying the creatures have a lot of brute strength, but their reasoning is only slightly faster than meatballs. It's the ideal scenario for Bong to make his debut. But his nervousness is so apparent, he even considers a practice session before the real combat. Meatball, always helpful in his own way, even offers to be a punching bag for the master to test his skill, confidently pounding his own stony chest. But Bong, despite the stress, has some consideration. He prefers not to beat up his ally without technical necessity. He decides it's better to spend his mana directly at the source and practice his technique on real orcs, even if Cossack laments having lost the chance to see the barbarian get a little beating. As soon as the monster horde appears, the dynamic duo springs into action with absurd violence, clearing the path as if they were just mowing the lawn. Cossack flies between the trees, decapitating heads with surgical precision, while Meatball smashes skulls. Bong stays frustrated in the back, complaining that at this rate, there won't be any targets left for him to test his thunder hammer. Luckily, a giant orc manages to break through the blockade and charges furiously toward them, creating the perfect opportunity the summoner had been waiting for. Instead of finishing the creature as he normally would, Cossack elegantly leaps back and clears the way, announcing that this one is all the master's. It's the moment of truth, and Bong's blood finally starts to boil with the adrenaline of being face-to-face with danger. Young man wastes no time, activating Shadow Step. He vanishes from the monster's sight, reappearing in its blind spot to avoid any immediate counterattack. He gains distance, jumps as high as he can, and starts channeling all his mana and frustration into the heavy adamantium club. Lightning bolts begin to snake around the weapon menacingly, and he prepares the first form of the Soul Chaser lightning, transforming the surrounding air with electricity. Impact is brutal. The lightning obliterates the orc's skull, burying what's left of its body into the forest floor by the sheer shockwave. Bong lands amid sparks and dust, feeling for the first time the real weight of his own offensive power in real combat. He looks at the damage at his feet and grins from ear to ear, realizing that now he's not just a master of monsters, but a fighter in his own right. Jun-hyuk checks out the damage after their first real test, and he realizes it was way too easy. He was already eyeing the next orc, ready to keep testing his strength and farm some juicy XP, but he didn't even have time to react. Before he could even raise his adamantium club, the giant mad bull just leaps over him and flattens the monster like a pancake. The protection level of these summons is just off the charts. And now they're staring at him with a serious look that makes it clear who's really in charge here. Our protagonist lets out a heavy sigh and lowers his weapon, reminding the big guys that the deal was for him to take down at least one enemy. Cossack, ever the pragmatic one, just nods, confirming that the master's quota for today is already busted. For Jun-hyuk, there's nothing left but to accept that the fun's over. He just watches his summons clear the 22nd floor with terrifying efficiency, leaving no room for argument. From then on, their tower climbing routine kicked into insane gear, in what he called the coward's farm. On the 23rd floor desert, he just needed to cast a single lightning bolt to get some participation credit, then left the rest to his guardians. The same dance happened in the 24th floor caves and the infernal heat of the 25th floor volcano. With Mad Bull on the front lines and Cossack covering the rear, the team became a monster grinding machine that no one could stop. Despite the rapid progress, Jun-hyuk starts feeling uneasy. He's not really testing his own limits. He knows he needs to earn his summon's trust little by little, but he feels like there's no real give and take, beyond the usual fried chicken. That's when he decides to use his biggest trump card from his inventory, the Grade Evolution Rune. He calls Cossack into the real world, pretending he just found some random pebble to give as a gift to his elite assassin. Cossack shows up, thinking he's getting a snack. But when he uses his magic sight, he's totally shocked. He goes into a trance, realizing he holds a legendary item that can break the barriers of his soul and elevate him to SSR grade. The assassin kneels, overflowing with an almost sickly loyalty, crying tears of emotion for receiving something so precious. He explains that the evolution changes his essence and must be done in the void, promising to return with a glorious new look next time he's summoned. After that emotional moment, Jun-hyuk decides to chill on the couch for a bit, but that peace doesn't last long when he catches a glimpse of the TV. He freezes completely, seeing a far too familiar face on a live news broadcast. Amidst a street protest, holding a sign against unfair dismissals, was none other than his own mom. The chill vibe instantly dies, replaced by a worry he didn't even know he needed to have. This is Hong Jiama's situation. It's pure, unadulterated Korean corporate injustice, the kind we already know. She worked hard installing purifiers until a rich client decided to treat her like a private maid. Since she refused to bow her head and the company even demanded a kneeling apology, the result was immediate termination. The company thought it could trample all over an ordinary employee without facing any consequences. But then fate, or something much stranger, decided to intervene in a cinematic way right there on the sidewalk. As Jun-hyuk's mom was getting ready for another round of solo protest, a guy in a suit, looking every bit the elite, walks up. He introduces himself as a representative from Park & King, literally the most feared and expensive law firm in the entire country. At first, she thinks it's just another lawsuit threat, but the reality is totally the opposite. Attorney Lee Seung-suk calmly explains that the firm has decided to take on her case as a pro bono charity mission. He talks about social justice and how Park & King wants to crush the purifier company in court without charging a single cent. Even though she's suspicious that there's no such thing as a free lunch, Mrs. Hong realizes this is her golden chance not to be trampled on and accepts the help of these legal sharks. The moment she says yes, the media circus explodes around her, like it was timed by a movie director. Dozens of reporters and cameras appear out of nowhere, turning one woman's solo protest into a massive national scandal. The lawyer encourages her to spill everything, ensuring every abuse she suffered is exposed for the whole country to see, while Jun-hyuk watches it all from home, utterly baffled at how the world just got turned upside down. Guilt hits Jun-hyuk like a punch to the gut. He feels like trash, eating chicken while his mom was humiliated in the sun. He starts planning how to sell his mana stones to cover the hidden costs this lawsuit will surely generate, because he's not dumb enough to believe in charity from a fancy law firm. But as he's calculating the worth of his magic barrier kit, the bizarreness of these events just keeps growing. His phone rings, and it's his dad. But the news isn't about the protest, it's about another inexplicable medical miracle. He excitedly says that Yong Hospital, a place that only caters to the absolute elite, called, offering a spot in an advanced rehabilitation social project. The protagonist's dad was chosen for a VIP room and all surgeries covered for free. Statistically, that's harder than winning the lottery twice in a row. At this point, Jun-hyuk has stopped believing in coincidences. He's on maximum alert. It just doesn't add up. Elite lawyers, luxury hospitals, and now his phone rings again with his younger brother on the line. The feeling that an invisible hand is moving the pieces of his life becomes suffocating. He answers, already expecting the next surreal news that will confirm something is seriously wrong behind the scenes. His younger brother confirms the pattern, saying he received a full government scholarship, called a social incentive for awakeners. When the Department of Awakened Management comes up in conversation, all the pieces click into place in Jun-hyuk's mind with surgical precision. It wasn't luck, it wasn't fate, and definitely not charity. It was an orchestrated operation by the national agency to surround his family with benefits he could never refuse. Furious about being manipulated and having his privacy invaded like this, Jun-hyuk calls Leader Jung directly and demands an immediate meeting for explanations. At lunch, the atmosphere is tense, and he doesn't bother being polite when questioning the reason for all this nonsense with his family. Leader Jung, with a calm only high-level bureaucrats possess, admits everything without even trying to make up a flimsy excuse, treating the manipulation as purely administrative. Government's argument is cold and logical. A hunter worried about bills and family problems is an inefficient hunter who could die at any moment. They need Jun-hyuk to be totally focused on the tower. That's why they fixed every one of his problems in less than 24 hours. The checkmate comes when Jung puts an ultra-elite contract on the table, offering to formalize all these privileges in exchange for the freedom and anonymity our protagonist fought so hard to keep. Leader Jung finally lays his cards on the table and shows he means business, presenting the paperwork all ready to make Bong an official elite hunter. To the rest of the world, the guy's an absolute prodigy who broke all tower speed records. But inside, Bong's dealing with massive imposter syndrome because he knows all the credit goes to his henchmen. He tries to play it coy, saying he's not that confident in his own abilities. But Jung is so dazzled by the consecutive S++ scores, he can't even fathom the kid might be telling the truth. Noticing the kid's resistance, Kama's big shot plays the emotional card and even bows down, practically begging him to accept the offer. Jung brings up the recent assault to convince Bong he needs serious state protection, guaranteeing he and his family will be treated like total VVIP royalty. Bong feels super awkward seeing such a powerful man bowing before him, but the fear of cameras monitoring his every move in the tower is still a huge roadblock to signing that paper. Finish sweetening the deal for our protagonist, the government finally drops the big one. 2 luxury mansions, one for him and one for his family, plus invisible security for everyone. Bong's eyes light up, seeing a life of luxury is just one signature away. And Jung, sly fox that he is, sees the bait has been taken. The promise of an elite bunker, without bodyguards breathing down his neck, is the final argument that shatters the kid's last defenses. Just as he's about to put pen to paper, Bong takes a step back. He decides he can't make a decision of this magnitude on impulse. He asks Jung for some time to process it all, saying he needs to hear from those he truly trusts before tying himself to the state forever. Jung gets a cold sweat from the hesitation, but he has no choice but to accept the deadline. Bong heads home, his mind racing with doubts about what his team will think of this golden leash. Back at his studio apartment HQ, it's time for a summit meeting and the triumphant return of Kazak, who now gives off a chilling aura of danger. After the Void ritual, the assassin not only changed his look, but also jumped to the legendary SSR rank, becoming an even more refined killing machine. He reappears full of swagger, ready to serve his master, but quickly notices the heavy atmosphere and that Bong has a very serious matter to discuss in private. Bong spills the beans about the elite contract, and Kazak, with the wisdom of a seasoned veteran, urges his master to accept the royal treatment, since his power is equivalent to an entire nation. The kid still worries the government might start demanding results, forcing him to climb floors that are too dangerous. But Kazak is so pumped about his new upgrade, he guarantees any tower challenge will be a piece of cake for them now. Assassin then drops a bombshell about the Void. The place is packed with insane beings, including demigod-level monsters that would make current hunters look like ants. He explains Bong's real strength is survival. Because if he stays alive and keeps evolving, one day he'll summon an entire army of SSR commanders to dominate everything. The kid's power ceiling is literally divine, and all he has to do is keep spinning that summoning roulette every month, leaving the dirty work to the pros. It's not all rainbows and butterflies. Kazak makes one vital demand for this contract. Bong needs total and absolute control over when and how he climbs the tower. The assassin, with clear resentment, says he's seen many summoners die because greedy politicians forced them into suicidal battles out of pure ego. This autonomy clause is the red line they can't cross, and Bong gets it. He needs to protect his freedom so he doesn't become government cannon fodder. The strategy's all set. Bong summons Meatball to complete the team, and Kazakh doesn't miss a chance to gloat over the big guy now that he's leveled up. The assassin is insufferably cocky, demanding reverence and releasing dark aura just to see the barbarian sweat bullets in fear. Bong watches the ego battle and already feels bad for the giant, promising himself the next evolution rune will go to Meatball, just to balance things out and stop this pointless humiliation. Trio steps onto the 25th floor of the tower. The challenge is simple: get past 100 warrior orcs and take down the warlord leading the horde. Bong pulls out his club, still hoping to get a bit of action, but Kazakh is seeing red, ready to debut his new SSR powers. The plan is simple for the summoned, but the massacre that's about to unfold will be anything but discreet for our protagonist, watching from the sidelines. Meatball charges in, acting as bait and tank, plowing through orcs like they're cardboard cutouts and herding everyone into one big cluster. It's the classic crowd control tactic, where the barbarian uses his brute strength to make sure no one escapes the range of what's coming next. While the monsters are still trying to figure out what hit them, Kazakh's shadow is already moving in a way no human eye can properly process anymore. What happens next is absolutely insane. Kazakh activates a blade explosion that now packs the destructive punch of a nuclear warhead. Bong almost falls over from the shockwave, realizing the skill that used to be just a trap now disintegrates anything in a massive radius. The SSR upgrade wasn't just a tiny status boost, it turned the assassin into a weapon of mass destruction that clears the entire area in seconds. Surviving orcs try a desperate sneak attack from behind, thinking they caught Kazakh off guard with their spears. But the game has changed entirely. What they hit was just a smoke clone left behind as a taunt. The real Kazakh is already in a different position, laughing at the monsters' faces as he preps his next move to finally end their pathetic resistance. Using his despicable ambush and poison-dipped daggers, Kazakh cleans house so efficiently, the battlefield becomes a graveyard in moments. He messes with the few traumatized survivors, asking why they're so scared when he's barely started his warm-up for the day. Bong, seeing that there won't be a single orc left for him to even test his club on, panics and realizes if he doesn't hurry now, he'll finish the floor without breaking a sweat. Kid activates Shadow Step and zips off like lightning, trying to snag at least one kill before his summons finish the job. He remembers what Kazakh said about staying safe and living an easy life, but something inside him shifted after getting a taste of real combat. He doesn't want to be just the protected guy, watching from the shadows while others fight his battles. A cowardly farmer mentality is starting to vanish, giving way to genuine thirst for power. Because Bong gets it, to protect his loved ones, he needs to be more than just fancy backup. He wants to be strong enough so no one ever dares to threaten his family again, and so Kazakh and Meatball don't have to carry the weight of the world on their backs alone. From now on, the goal isn't just to survive the tower, it's to completely dominate it. Jun-hyuk finally gets it. Being carried by his own summons has a dangerous limit. If he wants to truly survive long-term without being a burden to the guys he brought into this world, he needs to get his hands dirty right now. So he ignores total safety and rushes the front line, landing a perfect flying kick on an orc to show he's not just there for show. It's a necessary mindset shift, as the kid realizes his future peace directly depends on the strength he can project on the battlefield. Amidst the adrenaline, his combat instincts start to bloom, and he activates Shadow Step for the very first time. It's not just about moving fast, it's about becoming a ghost among enemy blades, zigzagging across the ground and taking down 3 orcs before they even know what hit them. Jun-hyuk's testing the limits of his own agility, feeling the system finally respond to his effort to stop hiding behind Mad Bull's meat shield all the time. System decides to reward this daring move and unlocks his hammer's second form, Scattered Lightning Drop. The knowledge is injected straight into his brain, and the curiosity to test an area of effect attack speaks louder than any prudence right then. He channels as much mana as he can and unleashes it all onto the ground, creating an electric dome that fries almost 10 orcs at once. He's genuinely shocked by his own destructive potential, feeling that overpowered sensation he only ever saw in his strongest summons. But the victory vibe doesn't last long, because Kazakh is having a nervous breakdown from worrying so much about his master. The assassin goes berserk seeing Jun-hyuk playing hero in the middle of the chaos and starts a historic scolding, reminding him the agreement was absolute safety on every floor. The kid even tries to act like the alpha, saying he's tired of being treated like he's made of glass and that he calls the shots around here, but the truth is, he's terrified of his own subordinate's reaction. It's that classic moment where the boss tries to assert respect, but his authority is purely theoretical compared to the desperation of an overprotective babysitter. Jun-hyuk's superiority speech is cut short in the worst way possible by shadow that simply blots out the sun on the battlefield. The great warrior orc chief shows up, the size of a 3-story building, and all that newfound courage vanishes instantly. His shriek of terror gives away that his alpha mode went out the window real fast, and he runs straight into Cossack's arms, begging for his life like he hadn't just claimed to be in charge. Reality hit hard, showing that the gap between a common orc and a floor boss is still too wide for him to face alone. Cossack doesn't waste time, instantly pulling his master out of the colossal axe's path using shadow speed, while Mad Bull takes the front line with his usual insane resilience. The barbarian holds the boss's heavy attack with a single hand, proving his brute strength is on another level, then follows up with a bone-shattering punch to the monster. To finish the job, Cossack appears behind the orc and delivers a lethal ambush, slicing off the enemy's head before it could even react. It's a visual reminder that no matter how much Jun-hyuk has evolved, his team is still what keeps him at the top of the food chain. With the 25th floor cleared, the system grants him an S++ ranking and unlocks special privilege options for accumulating platinum emblems. Between upgrading items or skills, Jun-hyuk goes straight for what really matters for his long-term strategy, enhancing his summoner trait. The choice pays off instantly, increasing his simultaneous summon limit to 3 members. Now he can already picture a full squad, calculating how many days are left until he can bring another monster to the team and solidify his personal army in the tower. To celebrate the success, the feast is every Korean's favorite, but with a touch of the master's sadism as he picks the spiciest version of tteokbokki. Cossack tries to keep his SSR warrior pose, saying he can handle it no problem, but one bite is all it takes for him to combust and desperately beg for water. Mad Bull, who devours everything like candy, takes the opportunity to mock him, suggesting Jun-hyuk toss the weak assassin out and summon someone who can truly handle the food's heat. It's the kind of interaction that shows, despite their divine powers, they're still just a bunch of misfits trying to live together. After all the fun, reality hits again, and Jun-hyuk decides he can't hide his family's wealth and power anymore. He gets home loaded with prime meat, which immediately sparks his mom's suspicion and his brother's confusion, who even asks if he robbed a bank. When he finally drops the bomb that he awakened as a hunter and is the source of all the recent money, the table's reaction is pure mockery. Nobody believes the guy they know, as a wimp could be an elite hero, and he realizes words won't be enough to convince those who watched him grow up as just average. Done with useless arguments, he calls Leader Jung and stages a display of authority to prove his new worth to his relatives. The family is escorted by state agents in luxurious limousines to a penthouse worth a fortune, leaving his dad and brother in shock at the level of extravagance. His mom still tries to hold onto her skepticism, but Leader Jung puts an end to her doubts by solemnly declaring her son is the nation's greatest strategic treasure. It's the moment Jun-hyuk finally keeps his promise to give a decent life to those he loves, using the system to turn the tables completely in his favor. Leader Jung finally got what he wanted. Bong Jun-hyuk didn't have much choice after that agency power play, so now he's there, signing the elite contract with the Awakened Management Department. He's really feeling the weight of officially becoming the government's most important asset. That smile on his face? Totally justified. Going from a debt-ridden grocery cashier to the nation's biggest strategic investment happened way faster than he expected. It's the kind of game-changing moment anyone would sign up for in a heartbeat, but he knows this is just the start of a very expensive leash. Even with the pen in hand, Jun-hyuk makes it clear. His priority isn't fame, but absolute anonymity. He's totally aware that if his face ends up in every newspaper and social media feed, his and his family's peaceful life will turn into a paparazzi-filled hell of opportunists. This ultra-elite secrecy clause is what really matters here. He wants to enjoy all that state money and perks, but without the burden of being a public celebrity or a target for political enemies. He'd much rather be the rich ghost than the exposed hero. Leader Jung even apologizes for only being able to offer a 2 billion won annual base salary. This almost makes Jun-hyuk choke on his profits while he tries to act like he doesn't care about money. And besides that huge payout, his family is already settled into a mansion where his mom even cried tears of joy. For his personal use, there's a luxury penthouse in Seoul, with the absolute best in tech and security. It's the ultimate life upgrade he never dared to dream of, transforming his reality of scarcity into a royal standard of living in a matter of days. Meanwhile, across town, the vibe is pure narcissism with Yoo Cheolman, Korea's current rank 1, flaunting his luxury life in a heated pool. He acts like he owns the world, treating the girls around him like mere props for his inflated ego, with utterly absurd disdain. This guy is the personification of the arrogance power can bring, measuring the value of everything by the price of the wine he's drinking and the submission of people around him. Cheolman's fun ends the moment the conversation turns to that mysterious record breaker hitting S++ ranks on all floors. He tries to scoff, saying floor 25 is beginner stuff and he wouldn't waste his time with some punk like that. But the truth is, his ego is taking a serious hit. Seeing an anonymous rookie steal all the online spotlight makes him furious. He feels like he's the only one worthy of adoration in the country, and can't stand being overshadowed by someone who hasn't even shown their face. The situation escalates fast. Rank 1 shows just how unstable and dangerous he is by humiliating one of the girls just because she kept pushing the prodigy topic. He starts yelling about the unbearable pressure of clearing floor 66 and how the whole country should be grateful he's preventing the Black Tower's collapse. His threat is heavy. If he decides to stop now, Seoul will be wiped off the map. He uses that collective fear to justify his abusive behavior and his lack of patience with anything that isn't praise. Lone and bitter, Cheolman reveals that his loyalty has a very clear price tag. Both China and Japan are already offering mountains of money and head-of-state diplomatic treatment for him to change nationalities. He feels wronged by the Korean government, thinking the support he receives is peanuts compared to the effort of facing the tower's horrors alone. The thought of abandoning his homeland to its fate is starting to gain dangerous strength in his mind, driven purely by greed and resentment. Big problem keeping Cheolman awake? It's the 66th floor, where the undead section starts to exact its toll, with specters immune to any physical attack. He's mentally exhausted. Each frustrated attempt to advance leaves him in a coma for days due to the shock of heavy demonic energy. Without sacred weapons or elemental light magic, he feels completely cornered against these ghosts, and being stuck there only intensifies his hatred for those progressing easily on the lower floors. Consumed by his wounded pride, he decides he'll accept the foreign offer and let Korea collapse in 3 months when the floor 66 time limit expires. He savors the morbid idea of seeing the country in absolute despair when they realize their hero left, all because they idolize some low-level rookie. It's a planned betrayal, meant to cause the greatest possible chaos, punishing the entire nation just to satisfy his own wounded vanity. Back to Ju-hyuk's new reality, he's discovering the wonders of the elite player village. Here, he doesn't have to lift a finger for anything in his daily life. The complex has everything, from luxury restaurants to heavy-duty cleaning services. This lets him focus solely on tower progress, without all those mundane worries from before. He finally understood that moving there was the best tactical decision he ever made, enjoying every second of this state-funded comfort. Mood in the new penthouse is super chill. Ju-hyuk ordered a feast of 10 boxes of fried chicken to celebrate massacring trolls on the 26th floor. The funny part is seeing Kazakh and Mad Bull completely hypnotized by a K-pop idol group on the 100-inch TV, solemnly ignoring the food on the table. Looks like even the world's deadliest summons succumb to the charm of 4K tech and pop choreography, leaving their boss talking to himself while they dig into the chicken. Strategy now is to park on floor 29 and farm for 10 straight days until the random summon cooldown ends. Ju-hyuk wants to enter the dreaded 30th floor with a full 4-person team, making sure the new member can serve as backup or even a human shield. Meanwhile, Kazakh is already having an existential crisis, terrified that the new recruit might be a legendary class and steal his spot as right-hand man and operations commander. Government's logistical support shows its real value when Leader Young personally delivers a custom-made volcanic leather armor to Ju-hyuk. This extremely expensive gear is essential for facing the next environmental challenges, proving that being a state asset makes survival way easier. With the built-in magical heating, our protagonist is now ready to face extreme temperatures without even feeling a shiver down his spine. On floor 27, the scene is a snowy mountain trying to freeze everything that breathes. But Ju-hyuk, he's chillin' in his volcanic jacket. The contrast with his summons is bizarre. Mad Bull holds strong with sheer grit, but Kazakh is practically turning into a human popsicle. The SSR assassin, famous for being a killing machine, is there chattering his teeth, trying to maintain the pose that his magic blocks the cold, even though he's clearly on the verge of hypothermia. Desperate to get out of that cursed ice and back to the comfort of a warm room, Kazakh freaks out and rushes into an insane charge to massacre all the monsters as fast as possible. Ju-hyuk barely has time to adjust his stance to try and join the fight when he realizes the job is already completely done. Talk about efficiency. It's pure desperation from someone who can't stand seeing snow anymore and just wants to finish the mission to stop trembling. The result couldn't be anything else. Another S++ rank record guaranteed. Ju-hyuk levels up almost effortlessly. He's even a little frustrated he didn't get a chance to test his new attacks since his summons cleared the map before he even took his first step in the snow. But the frustration quickly fades when a rare equipable item drops as a reward from the floor boss. That rarely happens so easily. The item is a sacred sword from an ancient paladin, but it's in such a deplorable, rusty state that Ju-hyuk tosses it aside like old junk. He doesn't even bother to read the hidden attributes, just throws the heavy blade to the bottom of his inventory, thinking it's useless and too ugly. What our timid boy doesn't know is that he just got the ultimate weapon against the undead. The item that's rank 1's nightmare and the master key to destroy the specters of the impossible 66th floor. After another mission, our boy decides to find a use for that rusty sword just taking up space in his inventory. He stares at the ugly blade and tries to pawn it off on Mad Bull. But the barbarian, with that, I solve everything with my fists attitude, makes it clear real warriors don't need cutlery to fight. When he tries to offer it to John Cossack, the response is even snarkier. The assassin, ego-inflated from being an SSR summon, says he only touches elite items. And that old junk? It just doesn't match his shiny wyvern armor. So our protagonist is left there, holding what he thinks is heavy garbage. He's already wondering how much he could get selling this junk to some desperate noob at the player shop. Before ditching the weapon for good, he decides to test its weight. He strikes a hero pose, trying to look imposing. But reality hits hard. The sword feels like it was forged with the weight of a mountain. He can barely balance the blade in the air. He totally embarrasses himself, stumbling around the room. He almost faceplants after 2 totally pathetic swings that leave him completely out of breath. Cossack, being the biggest brown-noser ever, starts clapping and praising his performance. But our protagonist isn't dumb. He tells him to cut the flattery, because he realizes how ridiculous his physical abilities are outside the tower's protection. His physical humiliation sparks a question about the real world's rules, and suddenly, the mood in the room gets super heavy. Cossack explains that Hunter's powers are severely limited by the reality barrier. Unless, something catastrophic happens. According to him, if Earth's towers collapse, the barrier breaks. The whole world then becomes an extension of the tower, removing power limits but bringing what he calls the apocalypse. That word makes our boy swallow hard. He realizes his current life safety depends on a much more fragile balance than he ever imagined. While our protagonist processes the fear of the end of the world, political games are heating up at the Japanese embassy. Counselor Tomo, an old guy who oozes venom with every word, is on the phone celebrating. The rabbit has finally decided to abandon the South Korean nest, he gloats. He's talking about Korea's rank 1, who's ready to betray his own country for promises of luxury and Japanese protection. Tomo guarantees the embassy will handle all the red tape and the silent escape. This sets the stage for a diplomatic storm, promising to leave South Korea totally vulnerable and without its main wartime trump card. 2 days pass, and Ju-hyuk decides that worrying about world conspiracies is a job for top-ranked heroes. He decides to focus on what he does best, farming in silence. Mad Bull rips ancient trees out by their roots to take down trolls hiding in the canopies, and Cossack finishes each one with surgical precision. He arrives on the 29th floor, which is basically a toxic, stinking swamp. It's home to infected trolls. Knowing the place is famous for making hunters sick with just one breath, he equips himself with a state-of-the-art oxygen mask. He's not about to risk his health in a place where the air is thick with pus and acid fumes, even if his summons think he's being a wuss. He summons the dynamic duo and immediately sends them to the front lines of that disgusting sludge. When he asks why they don't wear masks too, Mad Bull does that classic chest thump, saying warriors don't catch colds. Cossack, meanwhile, claims his SSR-class blood burns away any poison before it even enters his body. Without a hint of disgust, the two start a real massacre. They completely ignore the grime and green blood splattering everywhere. Hunt flows with terrifying efficiency. What would be a tactical nightmare for any normal team is just another afternoon in the swamp for them. In just a few hours, the floor is cleared. This nets Ju-hyuk another S++ rank record and a platinum insignia worth a small fortune. Our boy is grinning from ear to ear with the profits. His growth rate is breaking all the tower system's logic, even if he still feels like just a lucky guy commanding 2 combat monsters. Back in the safety of his luxury studio apartment, the problem becomes hygiene. Cossack is already hyped, asking for the traditional chicken feast, but our protagonist sees the trail of infected mud and troll blood there leaving on his expensive porcelain tile. He loses it. Without a second thought, and with no time for explanations, he hits the unsummon button. He sends both of them back to the void immediately. He'd rather be cursed as a cruel boss in the underworld than let the tower's grime ruin his new home's decor. Alone and in peace, he grabs the mop to make sure his fortress stays spotless. Scene shifts to the agency's military base, where the country's rank 2, Namgayon, is pushing her body to its absolute limit. She's the famous genius swordswoman, but not all the talent in the world seems enough to clear the 62nd floor. She's stuck because of the black zombies, monsters whose aura corrodes the sanity and equipment of anyone who tries to face them without holy protection. Frustrated and sweaty, she wonders if she's really hit her growth ceiling. She feels the weight of being one of the nation's few remaining defenses, as the danger only keeps growing. Even with her muscles screaming in pain, she refuses to rest. She takes supplements and prepares for another round of insane training. For her, the only way out is brute force and repetition. She feels like she carries Korea's destiny on her shoulders. As an elite player, giving up isn't an option, but the lack of light elemental items to fight the tower's darkness is a barrier no physical training can break. It's this almost desperate sense of duty that keeps her standing amidst the chaos, starting to take over the agency's corridors. Guyon's training is interrupted by a general uproar in the awakened management agency's corridors. She realizes something monumental has happened. She sees experienced agents running with folders, their faces pale with panic. She intercepts an admin colleague and finds out that rank 1, Yu Seung-min, has finally committed the act of betrayal everyone feared. The news is so serious that the entire building seems to go into shock. Everyone is anticipating the storm about to break over the country, now that its greatest hero has decided to switch sides. The news explodes across all screens. At an international press conference, surrounded by Japanese diplomats, Seung-min announces with absurd cynicism that he's renouncing his South Korean nationality. He publicly humiliates the government, claiming negligence, and naturalizes as a Japanese citizen in front of the whole world. Back home, Ju-hyuk watches it all while eating cereal. He ends up spitting out his milk in shock. The nation's strongest hunter just brazenly deserted, leaving an immense power vacuum and an entire country on the brink of collapse. It's not long before our protagonist's phone rings desperately. He's urgently summoned to a secret meeting at the agency HQ. There, he finds Leader Jung and the director looking deplorable. They clearly haven't slept since the crisis began. They get straight to the point. They ask him with total honesty if Ju-hyuk could reach the 60th floor in record time. They're putting all their chips on him. They're hoping the anonymous summoner will be the miracle solution to prevent the tower from collapsing in 90 days, now that the traitor is gone. Our protagonist does the mental math. He realizes that while mathematically possible, in practice, it's a suicidal plan that ignores the tower's risks. He doesn't let them intimidate him. He reminds the bigwigs that his contract guarantees total autonomy, and he's not going to kill himself for political pressure. He explains that climbing floors requires strategy and rest for his summons. And jumping from the 29th to the 60th floor at a breakneck pace is the fastest way to get killed. He stands his ground firmly. He makes it clear he won't make empty promises just to calm their desperation. In the middle of this impasse, Nam Ga-yeon bursts into the room, totally flustered. She wants to know about the light attribute items the United States promised to send. Leader Jung lets out a heavy sigh. He reveals it was all just a rumor, and the Americans denied support. With the global scarcity of these items, Rank 2 realizes she won't be able to face the specters on the 66th floor. Her despair is palpable, because without these weapons, South Korea has no chance at all of stopping the approaching apocalypse. Trying to break the funeral-like mood and wanting to get out of there fast, Ju-hyuk pretends he's just a low-level item seller passing by. He remembers the rusty sword in his inventory and decides to toss it on the table like it's just some random piece of trash. He comments that maybe that junk will help, since the hunter who sold it to him swore it was a sacred item. He just wants to get rid of the extra weight and keep his disguise. He has no idea he's about to change the entire direction of that conversation. Nam Ga-yeon looks at that pile of rust with utter contempt. But out of curiosity, she decides to check the weapon's hidden attributes. The instant the system reveals the data, she goes into absolute shock. The sword is actually a sacred item from the Kingdom of Holland. It has a 100% critical bonus and holy fire against the undead. Hit by a sudden adrenaline rush, the Rank 2 hunter lunges at our protagonist. She grabs his shoulders, begging to use the weapon, promising to do anything he asks in return. Our boy just stands there, red-faced with embarrassment from the close proximity. He can't understand how his junk turned into the world's most valuable item. In Bong Jun-hyuk's head, it's already wedding bells. He's so lost in Nam Ga-yeon's touch, he's already planning his perfect wedding with the Rank 2. And the delusion doesn't stop there. He's already planning a Paris honeymoon and a life of luxury, straight from a TV ad. In his head, he's got a drama-worthy physique, and their romance is straight out of a movie. He's at the peak of his delusion, even picking out their first child's name and imagining domestic bliss. But then, in his fantasy, Ga-yeon wants to name the baby Holy Sword, and that totally breaks the romantic mood. He's snapped back to reality by Ga-yeon waving her hands, realizing he just drooled all over himself. He tries to hide his blushing face while she excitedly asks if he'll really lend her the weapon like he promised. Jun-hyuk clears his throat, regaining composure, and confirms he'll hand over the sword, but he's got ulterior motives. He wants her to run a practical test, just to see if this rusty old junk is good for anything other than sitting in his inventory. While she's getting equipped and presenting herself to Leader Jung, all ready for combat, our guy is just thinking about the money. If this blade turns out to be useful, he'll sell it to the agency for a sweet price and finally get rid of this dead weight. The test stage, the spooky 62nd floor of the Dark Tower. The Rank 2 hunter's goal is simple in theory but deadly in practice: wipe out 20 black undead. As soon as she steps onto the floor, the whole place smells like a sulfur dump, and black zombies start popping out of the ground. These gross creatures exude death energy that can freeze any normal hunter in their tracks. Ga-yeon's terror is instinctual. Her body just screams to get out of this oppressive place every second. She's never gotten used to feeling her soul drained by these spooky monsters. But today, her confidence is all thanks to a worn-out blade, and she quickly activates its power. The thing is, the white radiation seems super weak compared to other light items, making her wonder if she just walked into a trap. No time to second-guess the low now, she decides to trust her gut and charges into the horde. This is her chance to prove she can clear this floor without retreating, unlike every single attempt before. The first clash is intense, with poisonous zombie claws just barely missing her skin. Ga-yeon tries to hold her ground, but the black aura around the enemies is like a concrete wall crushing her reflexes. Panic sets in as her body gets heavy, and her mind starts to cloud under the pressure of the undead. She even thinks the sword is just a useless piece of iron, and that this cursed floor is where she'll meet her end. But in that final split second, the passive skill, Unwavering Mind, kicks in, and a sacred shield explodes from the blade. The purifying light completely cancels out the negative aura, giving the hunter total freedom to move again. With that sacred damage bonus activated, what should have been a tough fight turns into a total one-sided massacre. A simple touch of the sword burns the undead's flesh, dealing critical damage with every single strike. The first zombie turns to glowing dust in seconds, and Guyon's confidence shoots through the roof. Now that she gets the weapon's true potential, the rest of the horde are just training dummies. She's completely shocked, realizing what felt impossible is now so easy she could do it with her eyes closed. The purification power of that old sword is just insane against these abyssal creatures. Outside, Leader Jung is practically pulling his hair out from anxiety, biting what's left of his nails. 2 hours have passed, and he's already accepted the mission was a bust, and she's probably coming back defeated. The portal opens, and Guyon emerges, panting, stopping to chug a healing potion before saying anything. Her silence only confirms the boss's suspicions. He's already prepping a consolation speech for the imminent defeat. Jun-hyuk cautiously approaches, figuring the sword totally failed, and he'll have to apologize. He awkwardly asks if the weapon at least helped out at some point in the fight. Out of nowhere, Guyon totally ignores protocol and gives him such a tight bear hug, it practically knocks the wind out of him. The guy just freezes, hands in the air and face on fire, not understanding anything that's going on. Through tears of relief, she shouts that the 62nd floor is finally cleared, all thanks to that miracle weapon. That revelation completely blindsides everyone, turning the funeral-like mood into an instant party at the agency. She guarantees that with the right repairs, this sword is the ultimate key to clearing up to floor 66 with ease. The Rank 2's confidence has never been higher, all thanks to Jun-hyuk's gear. Leader Jung realizes how lucky they got. If this sword had fallen into the hands of that defector, Yu Soo-min, Korea would have been doomed. Jun-hyuk officially becomes the most valuable player on the national stage, at least in management's eyes. Guyon looks at the guy with a mix of admiration and deep curiosity, trying to figure out how he keeps unearthing such busted items. The mystery around player Bong just keeps growing with every new win. She hands back the weapon, but warns that the fight was so brutal the blade is practically falling apart with cracks. Jun-hyuk was ready to toss it, but Leader Jung promises the government will cover all maintenance costs. Capitalizing on the interest, our hero tries to push the sword's sale right away to get some cash in his pocket. But Jung, acting like an elite consultant, gives him golden advice. Don't sell something so crucial, rent it out. The strategy is lucrative. Governments worldwide are stuck at level 60 and would pay fortunes for a light weapon. He estimates Jun-hyuk can charge no less than 10 billion won for each international rental. The guy's jaw hits the floor, and he practically short-circuits hearing that insane amount for a rental. What he thought was junk just turned into a money-printing machine that'll make him filthy rich. In a burst of patriotism, or maybe just because he's stoked, he offers a special discount to the Korean government. Leader Jung almost cries with gratitude over our favorite capitalist's calculated generosity. Jun-hyuk walks out of there feeling the weight in his pocket and already declares himself the Lord of the Holy Sword. The guy can't hide his grin anymore. He knows he'll never have to worry about bills again. To celebrate his new fortune, he decides to throw a fancy pork feast for his summoned team. It's time to chill and enjoy the rewards of a super successful investment. As Kazakh and Mad Bull devour everything, Jun-hyuk raises a toast to his endless wealth. He's so generous he doesn't even care about the food cost. After all, the incoming profit will cover everything and then some. On TV, the news of the 62nd floor's clearing becomes the main topic, and Guyon is hailed as the heroine who saved the country from crisis. Player Bong's name stays in the shadows, exactly as he planned it. 10 days go by, and Jun-hyuk just sticks to basic farming, avoiding any tower advancement for a very special reason. The random summon cooldown finally reset, and he's ready to try his luck again. To make sure bad luck steers clear, the guy goes into a purification ritual fit for a Tibetan monk. He cleans his whole house, meticulously trims his nails, and does a full fast to keep his body and mind pure. In the center of the room, surrounded by his loyal companions, he starts the countdown to a moment that could change his whole journey. The tension among the summoned is super thick. His only wish, he's begging for an SSR, something legendary and ridiculously strong to justify all the effort of this wild ritual. He knows the difference between hitting the top and utterly failing comes down to this next click. The serious mood is broken by Kazakh's jabs, who prays they don't get another useless companion. Jun-hyuk tells him to shut it, reminding him Mad Bull was crucial for those recent S++ scores. Despite the constant bickering, both try to give their master some moral support during this moment of pure anxiety. The holographic button is glowing, and Jun-hyuk's hand is even trembling before he confirms the summon. He presses the button and squeezes his eyes shut, putting his fate in the system's hands. The room is filled with a blinding golden flash, super different from previous summons that were dark or heavy. Celestial light particles start forming, revealing the silhouette of an elegant, imposing figure right in the center of the glow. The light's intensity shows that this time, luck truly decided to smile back at our hero. When the light fades, Joan Dowry appears, a woman with a noble aura who promptly kneels before him. She offers her absolute loyalty to young Master Bong, kicking off a powerful new phase for his elite team. And the smoke, which was just a mystery, reveals the newest summon, Joan Dowry, an SSR-Rank human shaman. Our MC Bong's team is left totally speechless with the arrival of yet another rarity. With perfect posture, she immediately shows off her divine weapons, a ceremonial sword and magic bells. She pledges loyalty and service to young Master Bong, making it clear she's no ordinary summon. Bong immediately wonders if she's a real shaman or even an exorcist. He's just trying to figure out the true power that just joined his team. But the reverent mood doesn't last long. Dowry turns to Cossack with a look that goes from angel to demon and accuses him of having impure thoughts. She threatens a beatdown to purify the assassin's soul while he just wanted to know what was happening. Bong tries to intervene, but she quickly softens her gaze and winks. She claims that he, as master, can appreciate her freely, leaving our MC completely confused by her bizarre mood swing. Even with this totally weird personality, Bong couldn't hide his joy. Another SSR on the team, with the same absurd rank as Cossack, it was worth every second of all that craziness. Her profile reveals Joan Dowry, the rigorous, solemn, and fervent high priestess of the Imperial Sanctuary. But for Bong, her behavior was way too aggressive for that description, and he needed to understand her better. To unravel the enigma, Bong decides to access the new summon's memories. He's hoping her story will explain all that intensity and split personality. The vision takes Bong to an ancient Asian empire, revealing that Dowry was the daughter of the Emperor of Chunjai. She abdicated royalty to become the greatest priestess of her time, a power in herself. Tragedy struck her hard. Her younger brother was assassinated by usurping uncles. This threw Dowry into an uncontrollable rage and a vow of bloody vengeance. She was willing to do anything to fulfill her promise. Her uncles, aware of the danger, tried everything to protect themselves. They used magic and thousands of human shields, but Dowry, the greatest shaman of her era, trained by the gods themselves, overcame every barrier. She performed the forbidden ritual of death, the Salgut, a spell that destroyed everything in its path and consumed the traitors, securing the revenge she so desperately desired, but at a very high price. Despite the revenge, the sacred curse she used for personal ends turned against her. It led Dowry to a tragic and painful end right after the ritual, paying the price for breaking divine laws. Bong wakes from the trance, sweating cold, and understands everything. Her insane charisma and bipolarity were the result of a fusion between a devout imperial priestess and the visceral hatred of a limitless avenger. Bong then takes the opportunity to ask a nerdy historian question: who founded the Chunjai Empire? Dowry proudly answers it was the great King Tijo, who defeated the Wang and Kim clans. Our MC freezes. The history he knew said the opposite, with the Wang clan unifying the kingdoms. And suddenly, it becomes clear that Dowry came from a parallel universe where history took another path. This only confirms what Cossack had already said about his world being similar, but destroyed. It leaves Bong fascinated by the idea of a multiverse with stories completely divergent from his own. But his stomach rumbles, breaking any philosophical mood about the multiverse. Bong decides it's time to eat some good ramen after fasting so much for summoning. Cossack, relaxed as ever, immediately asks for his extra hot. Meanwhile, Dowry, with her impeccable elegance, says a high-class warrior doesn't demand food from the master. She'll eat whatever he prepares, maintaining her poise. But the elegance quickly vanishes. Dowry turns to them and yells, calling them lazy scoundrels for letting Grand Master Bong cook alone. She orders them both to get up and go to the kitchen to prepare the grub. Cossack, annoyed, questions her authority. But Dowry immediately points her magic bells, threatening a dark curse to teach him respect. Something that makes the SSR assassin shake in his boots, and he stops questioning her. The assassin, terrified by the word curse, begs for mercy and runs to the kitchen. He grabs an apron and kicks Bong off the stove, with Meatball agreeing and clapping, showing who really calls the shots. After the meal, with Bong putting on his jacket, the three head towards the feared 30th floor of the Black Tower. They're ready for the next stage. Bong, already with a plan in his head, hopes Dowry's presence will distract the two overprotective idiots. This will open up a chance for him to take down some monsters alone and finally level up on his own. With the team ready, Bong prepares himself. But what he didn't expect was that Dowry's protection would be a total shot in the foot for his own progression and fun in the tower. Cossack already draws his blades, promising to annihilate everything, and Meatball vows to crush any threat to protect the master. Meanwhile, Dowry, surprisingly, approves of the loyal spirit of the two ogres. The mission for the 30th floor is clear. Within 13 hours, eliminate 80 giant mountain trolls and a two-headed troll boss, a task that seemed challenging for the group. Bong positions himself in the back, curious to see how a shaman would fight. He's imagining direct curses or sacrificial rituals based on her bloody past and beliefs. But what he sees leaves him speechless. Dalray snaps her fingers and, out of nowhere, summons a gigantic portable stereo megaphone full of lights. She hangs it around her neck, shattering all expectations. She explains, with the utmost naturalness, that in her time she would use musicians and drums. But now, in the modern era, she had to improvise with the system's technology to achieve the same effect. With a smile, Bong gives the okay. And Dalray turns the megaphone to maximum volume, beginning her celestial chant to bless the master and his army against the evil spirits of the tower. A massive golden light shoots from the megaphone, echoing the spell. And the energy divides, infiltrating Cossack and Meatball's bodies, preparing them for what was to come with the power of the gods. Meatball grows exponentially, becoming gigantic, effortlessly crushing trolls in an area. Meanwhile, Cossack gains an aura of dark speed, making him lethal and fast. And the trolls, in turn, become slow, as if they had invisible anchors on their feet. Bong is shocked. She wasn't a cursor, but a supreme buff support, giving colossal advantages to allies and applying debuffs to enemies at the same time. Something he had never seen in his life. With adrenaline pumping and the backline blessed, Bong can't resist the urge to slice some trolls. He raises his adamantium club, running to jump into the action and finally level up for real. But before he took 3 steps, Dalray's firm hand pulls him by the collar. She insists that the master should just relax and watch while she plays the music. Bong's heart chills with a terrible premonition as he tries in vain to argue that he was also useless and needed to fight. And while Bong was trying to argue, the 2 ogres, buffed with the power of the gods, massacre the 80 trolls and the 2-headed boss in a matter of minutes. The S+ rank notification already appears, indicating a clean mission. Bong falls to his knees, punching the ground, utterly frustrated. He couldn't kill a single monster again, regretting that he froze up and didn't ignore Dalray to jump into the fight. But upon hearing that the master was angry and would have pushed her, Dalray makes a crying face with her eyes filling with tears. And Bong's alpha heart, which wanted to fight monsters, completely melts at the sight. Dalray's unshakable priestess facade totally crumbles. She sobs, confessing, her fear of losing Master Bong is actually the terror of reliving her past. A past where everyone she loved was ripped away, leaving her utterly alone. The reality check hits Bong like a punch to the gut. He finally gets it. His summons aren't just game assets. They're spirits forged by real trauma, and her aggressiveness? That was just a shield, protecting a vulnerable soul. Suddenly, the heavy drama gets busted up. Mad Bull and Kazakh make their loud, triumphant return, but the assassin quickly picks up on the tense vibe, and with his usual cynicism, he tries to twist the princess's sensitivity into ammo for a new fight. Among the system rewards for beating the 30th floor, a rare item shines, a cooldown reset ticket. Bong instantly gets it. With this in hand, he can ignore any time rules. He can force a new SSR summon whenever danger calls. Meanwhile, the global media is going wild for Nam Gyeon's success. Her strategic use of the paladin's sword against the undead, it's turned the item into a symbol of hope. And get this, the Korean government starts setting up a rental plan, one that'll diplomatically isolate any nation associated with that defector, Yuchi-alman. Over in Japan, Yuchi-alman's chill comfort is totally shattered. He sees his old homeland's success splashed all over TV. The humiliation hits hard. Korea has a weapon that can clear the tower while he's treated like a diplomatic nuisance. His arrogance just boils over into pure hatred. Political pressure escalates super fast. Japanese officials show up, demanding results. The government, backed into a corner by public opinion and Korea's trade blockade, has no choice. They demand Chialman enter the tower immediately, clear the 57th floor, and clean up his tarnished name. Chialman's rage? It explodes into violence against his own furniture. He's trapped between the nation's contempt and his own incompetence. And he swears vengeance against that unknown summoner who, in his mind, caused this whole humiliating table turn. Far from all that chaos, Bong monitors the fallout from his sword play. He watches the world worship an anonymous hero, and even though he wants to reveal his identity, he keeps up the disguise. He knows anonymity is his biggest strategic advantage. The doorbell rings. It's a luxury delivery, something the old Bong, a work slave, would never have dared to buy. Now, 10 tubs of premium ice cream fill his table. It's a physical reminder, the game has changed. And living the high life means enjoying little luxuries. Bong completely breaks the etiquette the princess tried to impose. He shares the frozen feast with his allies. The scene is bizarre, right? A barbarian and an assassin, totally used to blood, discover the pure joy of dessert. For a moment, it erases all the battlefield tension. Dalray, still holding her aristocratic pose, tries to scold her companions for their lack of manners. She watches with disdain, until Bong, with a smile, offers her some of the sweet treat, basically forcing the ex-princess to give in to the forbidden pleasures of modernity. But the joy of ice cream quickly turns into a dark conversation. Why? Because Yu Chialman's name comes up. Kazakh, always ready to stir the pot, recounts all the defectors' dirty tricks. This ensures the priestess's fury is aimed precisely at the right target. The princess's twisted sense of justice? It's screaming for blood. She proposes a ritual to make sure that traitor gets what's coming to him. This transforms Bong's hatred into a tool for divine retribution, one that can cross any geographic barrier. Dalray explains, this isn't some common curse that'll drain her life force. Nope. The karma-weighing ritual is a cosmic scale that just accelerates destiny. If Cheolman is a man of many sins, the universe itself will take care of destroying him. Kazek, acting like a ghost, sneaks into the defector's old mansion in Seoul. He grabs a trivial object, but it's loaded with the owner's energy. That filthy remote control Cheolman used while plotting against his own people. The ritual begins. With just a drop of her own blood, Dalray seals the remote control's fate. Bong's room fills with a purple aura and spectral bells. Command words echo, connecting the object directly to the defector's soul, all the way in Japan. The princess then invokes the weight of mountains and the fury of rivers to seal the pact. The ritual of the relentless balance is complete. The spiritual link between this forgotten trash and the man who touched it is now firm. This ensures the traitor's harvest will be as bitter as what he sowed. With the remote control now glowing with the seal of the contract, everything's ready. And get this, while Cheolman prepares for his televised public appearance, the wheel of karma has already started spinning. It's ready to collect every betrayal, every single drop of his accumulated greed. Next day, Japan stops everything to fawn over the nation's new darling, with a national broadcast and all. Yu Cheolman, now strategically rebranded as Rusin, gets the superstar treatment on one of the country's biggest talk shows. He's sitting on the guest of honor couch while the audience goes wild. The host piles on endless compliments, treating this defector like a messianic savior who's finally gonna pull the country out of this mess and solve the tower problem no one else could. There's a pretty desperate reason behind this whole circus, though. Japan is hero-less, and its morale is at rock bottom after losing its former rank 1, right on the 57th floor. The host is openly grateful Rusin accepted immigration so quickly, painting the guy as a martyr of justice who came out of the goodness of his heart. But really, everyone knows he just went to whoever offered the fattest check and the best perks. Pumped up by his ego and the sound of applause, Cheolman decides to double down to guarantee he'll be tomorrow's absolute headline. He announces live that he's gonna clear the dreaded 57th floor right then and there, no rest or prep needed. Even with plenty of time left on the floor's limit, he plays the worried hero, saying the Japanese people can't suffer another second under the tower's threat. He guarantees that if he could clear it in 8 hours back in Korea, here, he'll smash that record and finish everything off in just 4. Cameras follow his every step to the portal, turning what should be a serious mission into a self-affirmation reality show. The goal seems simple for someone of his caliber: take down 15 fire wyverns, monsters he knows inside out. Cheolman has already memorized every attack pattern from the countless times he repeated this scenario back in Korea. So he walks in with that arrogant swagger, thinking destiny is already written and nothing can go wrong. But the air in there feels way heavier than usual, and a strange chill runs down his spine the moment he steps out of the safe zone. He tries to ignore his gut feeling, thinking it's just the pressure from the audience. Little does he know, Dalray's wheel of karma is all ready to collect every single cent of the debts he's piled up. Bad luck isn't just a possibility anymore, it's a sentence that's already started. Strategy follows the basic playbook for anyone not wanting unnecessary risks. Lure one enemy at a time to avoid being surrounded. Since he's a swordsman-archer hybrid, the plan is to chip away at the creature's health from afar and only draw his blade for the finish if a monster gets too close. He knocks an arrow with the stance of someone who's done this 1,000 times, ready to start the show that'll solidify his fame in this new country. The moment he shoots, the universe starts showing that today is gonna be a long day. The arrow, perfectly aimed to pierce the isolated target's skull, suffers an inexplicable mid-air deviation. It ends up hitting dead center on a wyvern sleeping peacefully in the next nest. The result is the worst possible. Instead of a controlled duel, he now has 2 furious monsters coming at him at once. And despair starts to hit as he realizes even his critical attacks aren't landing like they should. Trying to regain his composure for the official cameras, he aims at the next group. But Karma decides the humiliation has to be complete. The exact millisecond he releases the bowstring, an uncontrollable sneeze makes his hand shake, and the arrow misses by a mile. The sound of it hitting the rock works like a dinner bell, drawing the attention of an entire flock that was flying overhead. Now the situation has escalated from an easy practice to a desperate fight for his life. Panic takes over when 3 wyverns decide to use fire breath simultaneously, a rare ability they almost never use because it consumes too much mana. Cheolman can't understand why probability decided to spit in his face like this, especially today. He's forced to burn all his ultimate and defensive skills at once, barely escaping being roasted alive. He's completely exhausted, and his armor is in tatters, right before the eyes of millions of viewers. Even at his worst, his narcissism still tries to cook up a way out to avoid national embarrassment on global TV. He figures if he defeats this last wyvern, wounded on the ground, he can still sell the narrative that he faced a massive ambush and won with cinematic glory. He approaches to deliver the finishing blow with his sword, thinking the worst is over and he'll finally get a good shot for the show's replay. That's when destiny deals the final blow to bury his career. As he takes a step back to get momentum, he feels a slimy crunch under his boot. He realizes he just crushed wyvern eggs that were just starting to hatch. The sound of the dying hatchlings' cries echoes through the cave like a siren of revenge. He starts calculating the mathematical chances of this happening, and the conclusion is clear. It wasn't a technical error. It was a cosmic coincidence specifically designed to destroy him in the most improbable way possible. The sky turning black from so many wyverns coming to avenge their destroyed offspring, Ryusun's pride turns to ashes. He turns his back and runs like a coward towards the safe zone. Meanwhile, back in the studio, the atmosphere is still festive, with idol groups dancing and celebrating the hero's supposed victory. The contrast between the cheerful music on stage and the absolute terror plastered on his sweaty face is the perfect definition of a live comedic tragedy. It reappears in the middle of the stage like a thrown sack of potatoes, interrupting the singer's choreography and leaving the host speechless. Covered in soot and trembling with rage, Cheolmin can't handle the pressure of this epic failure. When the host tries to save face by asking about the time record, he just loses his head. He kicks the broadcast camera and tells everyone to go to hell before storming off backstage, sealing his fate as the biggest joke of the year. His fall was way faster than the meteoric rise they'd promised. In just minutes, the internet is flooded with memes and headlines ridiculing the paper hero who ran from a floor he himself called easy. The Japanese government, which poured tons of money into his naturalization, now deals with a diplomatic crisis and furious public opinion. Meanwhile, Cheolmin's reputation is buried under thousands of comments calling the guy a fraud. While their neighbor drowns in its own chaos, life in Korea is on a whole other level. Bong Jun-hyuk is chilling, getting consecutive S++ rank notifications like it's routine. With Joan Dalray's overpowered buffs and Nam Gyun clearing elite floors in record time, Korea solidifies itself as the only force that truly knows what it's doing, leaving the rest of the world watching from afar, dying of envy over their success. But all this success starts attracting bigger sharks from across the ocean. Over in the US, the Department of Homeland Security is already eyeing Korea's legendary Holy Sword of Roland. Player Jard is obsessed with the item, since it's the only resource in the world with 100% critical hit chance against undead, and he's already pulling political strings to ensure that weapon ends up in his hands, no matter the price they have to pay. Secretary Macmillan sees Japan's misfortune as the perfect chance to bite off a huge piece of their treasure. He decides he'll rent Korea's sword and pass on the cost, with criminal interest, to the Japanese government that's now desperate and heroless. His plan is to drag out negotiations until the last second, waiting for Tokyo's tower to reach the brink of collapse. Because he knows that when push comes to shove, the Japanese will hand over even their own country to be saved by the Americans. Arma doesn't mess around. The whole world is watching Ryusun the deserter crash and burn. While Japanese media scrambles to cover up the humiliation, our main guy is just chilling in his penthouse. He's snacking, watching the whole circus unfold on TV. He asks Dalray how long Ryusun's bad luck will last. Her answer is direct. It only ends when destiny's balance is restored and his trials are over. Bong might have a soft spot and feel a tiny bit of pity. But then he remembers. The guy totally reaped what he sowed with all that arrogance and those bribed items. Okay, enough with the fallen celebrity drama. Today's plan is to clear the tower's 32nd floor. But here's the thing, his summons are way too overprotective. They almost never let their master get his hands dirty for actual experience. So Bong targets Dalray's weak spot. He guides the shaman to the kitchen, revealing a freezer stuffed with premium ice cream. Cossack, not one to miss a beat, smells the betrayal from the living room. He starts whining that the master bought his favorite flavors and won't share. The whole vibe turns into a high-level negotiation. For these powerful entities, tubs of sweets are worth more than gold. To calm down the two brutes, Bong plays his final card. He promises a prime-cut barbecue if they cooperate with today's hunt. Dalray completely melts at the offer. She starts treating her master like some celestial knight sent to bring peace to the world. But Bong isn't giving out sweets for free, no way. He lays down the law. He demands the right to defeat at least 5 monsters by himself to level up. The shaman tries to get clever, negotiating for him to kill just one, claiming he's too fragile. But they finally settle on 3 guaranteed kills for our protagonist. The moment they step onto the 32nd floor, the system announces the mission, take down 20 rank 2 minotaurs, and the tower's manual wasn't lying. These beasts are the absolute terror of this level range, mainly because of their bizarre size. Mad Bull is already a 10-foot pole, so these 13-foot bulls of pure muscle, wielding colossal axes, make anyone feel like an ant. Bong feels that classic cold sweat running down his spine. But he convinced Dalray to let him fight, so backing down now would be a humiliation his pride couldn't stand. Dalray enters support mode. She starts spreading slow debuffs everywhere, making things easier for her master. While Mad Bull and Cossack clear out the surroundings, our protagonist sees an opening. A giant rushes him with a heavy blow. Using the ultra speed he's been polishing, he barely dodges, and then he appears behind the monster using Shadow Step. He channels all his mana and unleashes falling lightning. It's a technique that uses the force of a fall to explode the Minotaur's neck. The impact is so bizarre the beast turns into digital dust instantly. Bong finishes his quota with renewed confidence, securing yet another S++ record for his resume. Meanwhile, over among the elite official hunters, Nam Gian is totally proving that our protagonist's investment paid off. She just emerged exhausted from the 65th floor. She confirmed to her manager that she cleared everything in record time, all thanks to that rented holy sword. Korea is under insane tension because of the tower's imminent collapse, and her success is literally what's keeping the country's hope alive right now. They're already planning to invade the next floor in 3 days, hoping to snag that 6-month survival bonus the government is practically begging for. Over at the agency headquarters, Leader Jung is having a blast with the reports. He thinks the power transition to player Bong is gonna be perfect down the line. But then his secretary throws some cold water on him. She warns that their info charts are more outdated than a bank queue. Bong's status just got globally updated with an insane mark. The 33rd floor cleared in a row with S+ rank. That's not just talent, it's a statistical anomaly that leaves Jung absolutely dumbfounded. He realizes this kid is a monster of power, way beyond what they ever imagined. But while the government big shots freak out over the stats, Bong is at home worried about much more practical things, like how to take 3 monsters for a walk without causing national panic. Dalray presents the perfect solution, a concealment talisman. It basically makes people see the summons as ordinary, harmless citizens. This is the passport to freedom for the team, who until now lived cooped up at home. Our protagonist gets super excited because he can finally fulfill the barbecue promise and pretend to have a normal social life with his new exotic bodyguards. Right in the middle of the celebration, Bong's phone pings. It's that deposit notification that makes anyone's eyes light up. 1 billion wons just landed in his account, all from Gion's rental of the holy sword on the higher floors. Doing some quick math, the kid realizes he's already raked in an absurd fortune just from the monthly fees of this loan. He starts picturing himself flaunting Ferraris and yachts all over the place. But for now, he decides to keep his feet on the ground. He'll use the money to fund the mountain of meat his summons plan to devour. With the talisman active, the 4 head out to walk through the illuminated streets of Seoul. They look like just a group of friends doing cosplay. The magic works so well that Cossack and Dalray go unnoticed, but Mad Bull is a whole other story. The guy is a 10-foot giant basically wearing a leather Speedo, and instead of people running in fear, girls find his look cute, whispering and giggling. Bong walks beside him feeling mortal second-hand embarrassment, trying to figure out what kind of mental distortion this talisman caused in the local population's minds. Night at the barbecue joint was a limitless party, with beef and soju flowing freely for everyone, but the shock came the next morning. When Bong looked at his bank statement, he almost had a heart attack. The nice little dinner cost 12 million wons, feeding a giant barbarian and a hungry assassin costs more than maintaining a luxury car in the garage. He gives an ultimatum to his summons: if they want an encore, they'll have to work twice as hard in the tower. Their food budget is getting out of control. They immediately head to the 34th floor, and they come face to face with a titanic rank 4 Minotaur. It's a 20-foot mountain holding a warhammer. Bong tries to devise a clever strategy, focusing on the legs to bring down the giant, but Cossack immediately bursts his bubble. The assassin says the master still doesn't have the impact force to withstand a direct exchange with that heavy beast, but the protagonist stamps his foot and demands his guaranteed kill. That's when Cossack decides to use a very unconventional launch tactic to help the master hit the monster's weak point. Cossack orders Mad Bull to serve as a human trampoline. He uses the promise of more barbecue as fuel for the giant to accept anything without complaining. Bong doesn't even have time to process the madness. He's instructed to run and jump with all his might into the barbarian's enormous hands. The impulse is so violent that the kid is launched into the sky like he was fired from a supersonic cannon. The wind rips across his face, and the ground disappears from sight in a matter of seconds. This leaves our protagonist in a state of absolute terror as he flies towards the clouds on a suicidal trajectory. When the ascent finally stops and gravity takes over, Bong goes into freefall at a terrifying speed. He starts screaming desperately, thinking this is it, the ridiculous end of his journey, splattered on the tower floor all thanks to some crazy plan. But amid the total panic, his survival instinct screams louder. He desperately tries to control the mana in his feet. He needs balance, a miracle even, not to turn into a pancake. He's trying to remember a bizarre sensation of resistance he felt during his movement training. His focus reaches an absurd level of concentration. He concentrates all his energy on the soles of his boots, creating an invisible shockwave in the void. He realizes that Shadow Step isn't just for running on the ground. It's for creating platforms of dense mana in the air itself. Suddenly, that cowardly kid who could barely lift an old sword starts walking on nothing. It's like he's climbing an invisible ladder to the sky. Fear gives way to the ecstasy of discovering he just unlocked an aerial mobility ability. It's going to completely change the game from now on. From down below, the team is jaw-dropped, watching Summoner Bong defy gravity and literally walk through the sky. It's such a spectacle that Gwanda blinks repeatedly, totally blown away by what she's seeing. Kazakh sees this and remembers the void, where his old commander used to say that Shadow Step, at its peak mastery, could transcend gravity. Back then, he thought it was just a legend to puff up the assassin's egos, you know. But now, seeing his master fly, the assassin realizes Summoner Bong is an off-the-charts monster, with no limits to what he can do. That's just too crazy for one person. Flying in midair, the guy realizes the speed he's picked up can be used as an extra boost in a free fall, perfect for a fatal finishing blow. Without wasting time, he activates the thunderous primordial hammer's third form, falling lightning, and hits the titanic minotaur square on, obliterating the beast's skull. The landing is that asterisk kind of landing, a painful split, but full of style. The team approaches, praising his feat. Kazakh highlights Bong's overwhelming talent, Mad Bull proclaims him a warrior, and Gwanda, with a fatal charm, asks him to be more careful next time, because her heart almost stopped from the scare. On the outside, Bong keeps his tough guy pose, wiping his clothes. But on the inside, he almost peed his pants with fear, thinking he was going to turn into mush on the ground. After the show, Kazakh and the others take care of the rest of the monsters, and floor 34 is successfully cleared. Then, the system window pops up with the rewards. And Bong can't believe what he's seeing. He got a rare summoning evolution rune in the loot. What insane luck, to drop an item of that level on a floor that wasn't even a final boss. Back home, he gathers everyone and praises the team for the good work. But he soon pulls Kazakh aside for a more secret chat about the new rune. Kazakh quickly denies it, explaining that common runes depend on hidden potential and don't reach LSSR rank, which is a divine exception. SSR is his ceiling, period. But the conversation is interrupted by Mad Bull, who raises his hand like a kid in school, asking to go out and eat meat again, because Korean barbecue is just too good. Kazakh smacks the barbarian on the neck, telling him to shut up and reminding him how much Summoner Bong spent on the last dinner. He's way too cheeky, man. Gwanda agrees with the assassin, adding that no noble wants a servant with a bottomless stomach. Poor Mad Bull, a rank R warrior, hangs his head, apologizing. Seeing Mad Bull getting bullied more at home than beaten by monsters in the tower, Jun-hyuk decides to balance the power scale of that household. He calls Mad Bull aside, explaining that the stone isn't for eating, and reveals that it's a summoning evolution rune, all his, to level up. Mad Bull collapses with emotion, his eyes overflowing with tears, crying loudly that Summoner Bong is too good for him. It's drama worthy of a soap opera. The 3-meter brute can't contain himself and gives a bear hug, crushing our protagonist against his hairy, sweaty chest. Jun-hyuk, suffocated and disgusted, struggles, begging him to stop. While the emotional scene of the barbarian's evolution rolls on in Korea, in Beijing, China, the atmosphere is one of pure chaos and failure at the Special Intelligence Department. The director, furious, slams the table, questioning why they still don't have news of Floor 59's completion. The agent, sweating cold, tries to explain that more than half of the superstars they naturalized have vanished in the Black Tower, and many are going crazy. At that moment, the Chinese intelligence vice director, Zia Jun, with a brown folder, reveals that it's the updated confidential list of South Korea's new elite players. Zia Jun orders them to analyze the profiles of the newly contracted rookies from this list and choose a promising target, but without a famous name, to be brought to China immediately. The agent hesitates about the Korean government, but Zia Jun glares at him, telling him not to leave any trace. The order is clear. The homeland cannot have a reason to disavow the operation. The vice director laughs alone in the room, ironizing Japan's stupidity with its public ceremonies. If you want a rival country's talents, just go there and kidnap them in the shadows, man. 2 days later, unaware of government conspiracies, Bong Jun-hyuk faced a more serious drama at home. Instant noodles for dinner for the 3rd consecutive day. He drops his chopsticks, thinking that eating instant noodles for 3 days is too much punishment for his gut. But something bothers him more. Mad Bull's tab is still unavailable in the summoning catalog, and he wonders if something went wrong with the evolution. Kazakh warns that the process is painful and dangerous, and a failure can delete the summon. But Gwanda quickly flicks his ear, explaining that if it had failed, Mad Bull's name would have already vanished from the list. She explains that if the name is still there, glowing but unavailable, it can only be a double jump of rarity, a minuscule chance where the rune reacts so strongly that the summon jumps 2 ranks at once. In these cases, the summon stays immersed for days to adapt to its new body. Kazakh drops his plate, shocked. The priestess is right. Mad Bull's soul is pure and empty like a field of sunflowers, perfect to absorb the rune 100%. Jun-hyuk jumps from his chair, teasing Kazakh, saying that if Mad Bull does a double jump from rank R, he'll become an SSR just like him. To clear their heads, they decide to go for coffee. Bong's penny starts to drop. If Mad Bull was already 3 meters tall and took up the entire living room before, evolved he's going to destroy the house. And with Gwanda living with them, an apartment with more rooms is essential. At the coffee shop, Bong overhears two hunters gossiping about Huntress Nam Gyeon, who's going to clear floor 66 with the legendary holy sword. He lets out a sneaky little smile, thinking that if those idiots knew who was on their side. He takes a sip of his coffee, satisfied with the sarcasm of the situation, while the gossip about the goddess continues at the next table. Suddenly, his phone rings. It's leader Young. Young, with his PR tone, congratulates Bong for his S++ rank record on floor 34, saying the agency is amazed. Bong humbly thanks him, pushing the credit back to the agency, affirming it was all thanks to the continuous logistical support he's received. Young clears his throat and gets to the real topic, another little support gift. Young drops the bomb. The government wants to transfer the official deed of defector, Yoo Seung-min's super high-end luxury triplex penthouse to him, for free, and they can take care of the paperwork today. Bong almost chokes on his coffee. The rank 1's mansion for free? And totally free? That's insane. Young explains it's a sign of appreciation and gratitude for the discount on the holy sword, which has been saving the country's diplomacy. Trying not to seem desperate, Jun-hyuk stutters that he'll think about it and call back later. Kazak, already stuffed with sweets on the table, asks who was on the phone. Jun-hyuk explains the offer of Yoo Seung-min's mansion, asking what the place is like, since Kazak visited it the other day. Kazak's eyes widen, and he raises his hand, describing the place as stupidly huge with a hanging garden on the rooftop, perfect for growing lettuce for barbecue. Gwanda agrees, saying it's a suspended palace in the capital, worthy of her lord. Jun-hyuk questions if he should accept, and Kazak makes an X with his arms, totally against it. The wise man distrusts big handouts, there's a catch for sure. Gwanda rebuts the assassin, calling his pessimism disgusting. She votes that the master should accept, because the house is a trivial price compared to the effort and strength he demonstrated to save the country. Bong scratches his chin, both had great points. But he reflects that, if he accepts the millionaire mansion for free, the agency can use that against him, playing the gratitude debt card to force something dangerous on him in the tower. Knowing his personality, he wouldn't have the courage to say no if he were indebted to them. The decision is made. He bangs the table and announces, they're moving to the penthouse, but they're not accepting it for free. He's going to refuse the donation and buy the house on the open market, so he won't be indebted and can avoid rumors. After all, he's filthy rich, and the house is just a luxury apartment, right? He decides to quickly check the value on the tax table. He opens the real estate portal on his phone and types the penthouse address. The page loads, and he starts counting the zeros on the screen. 1,000, 10,000, 100 million, 10 billion? He turns pale. His heart skips a beat. The luxury triplex penthouse in Central Seoul cost the astronomical sum of 20 billion won. Kazak notices that the master has turned into a white ghost and asks what the problem is, since he looks so pale. Jun-hyuk secretly puts away his phone, disguising his heart attack. He says it's nothing, Kazak, but they've had too much coffee for today, and it's better to go back to their cozy little apartment. Kazak shrugs. He doesn't care about the place, as long as he's by the master's side. As the three get up and leave the coffee shop, two hooded guys in trench coats quickly pass them on the sidewalk. The exact moment one of the guys bumps into Kazak's shoulder, the summons SSR-grade assassin instinct goes off instantly. Kazak's eyes shine, and he freezes, analyzing the two men's hands from behind. He realizes those guys have combat calluses, deadly scars, a heavy smell of hidden blood, and traces of gunpowder and poison. They aren't conventional hunters, they're death agents with hidden silencers. And the worst part, it's no coincidence they're loitering around the government's elite safe building. Knowing something big is about to explode and his master's life is at risk, Kazak doesn't hesitate. Subtly, he silently activates his stealth tracking mark skill on the mercenaries' backs. Jun-hyuk, who's a few steps ahead, notices Kazak has stopped and asks what he's doing just standing there. Kazak replies it's nothing, master, and that he's coming. Nam Gyeon prepares for another raid on the Black Tower, her mission, to make a difference. The holy sword is super helpful for neutralizing undead aura, but she knows she can't rely just on that. The responsibility for what's coming is all hers. Her mind is a battlefield, where she's taken down countless legions of undead already. It's intense training, focused on every single type of creature, so nothing can surprise her in the real world. She's more than ready for whatever comes. With the determination of someone who knows what needs to be done, Nam Gyeon says goodbye to the awakened management department team. They root for her, wishing her good luck and to be careful as she heads to the portal. The portal drops her right into the 66th floor of the Black Tower in Korea, where a gigantic monster is already waiting. No time to breathe, she instantly draws her sword, ready for the decisive combat. 10 hours of insane fighting later, she finally emerges from the portal, exhausted, but mission accomplished. The system confirms, the 66th floor of the Black Tower has been cleared, and her relief is palpable. The team celebrates. Nam Gyeon's success not only clears the floor, but it also guarantees another 180 days of peace for Korea. It's a huge accomplishment that takes a massive weight off everyone's shoulders. News of Nam Gyeon's success explodes in the media, and the internet goes wild. She's hailed as the nation's hero, the savior who bought 6 months of breathing room against the Black Tower threat. People don't hold back on the praise, and of course, they take the chance to dig at the traitor, Yu Cheolman, who bailaid to Japan. Midst the party, with confetti and tons of celebration, Nam Gyeon is the star. In the interview, she stays humble, thanking everyone for their support, and of course, the mysterious owner of the Holy Sword who made all the difference. Meanwhile, Bong, the true owner of the Holy Sword, celebrates Nam Gyeon's achievement. He's happy that now they have 6 more months to calmly plan their ascent of the tower. All this energy on TV gives Bong an itch. He's already itching to get back into action and advance through the tower floors. Suddenly, while checking Meatball's summon catalog, he notices something crucial. The unable to summon warning just vanished. It clicks for Bong and his jaw drops. Meatball is back, ready for battle. The wait is finally over. Without wasting any time, Bong summons the monotonous barbarian Meat Shield, eager to see the rune's result. He can't even hold back his curiosity. Did he turn SR, or maybe even SSR? The summoning light dissipates, and what appears leaves Bong utterly shocked. Instead of the big, kinda clumsy Meatball, a muscular human warrior shows up, full of braids and tattoos. Who the heck are you? He wonders in disbelief. The warrior then introduces himself, but Bong still can't believe what he's seeing, even with the status screen confirming it. It's Meatball, but now at an SSR level, with a new look and a presence that's no joke. That upgrade rune really did some serious work, huh? While Bong is still processing Meatball's change, Joan Dalray and John Cossack are also summoned, completing the team. They have no idea what's going on. Cossack, totally lost, asks if Bong decided to reveal their existence to strangers. But the confusion grows when Bong points to the new warrior and says, super casually, "This is Meatball." Cossack's face is just priceless. Bong explains that Meatball's appearance changed after that grade upgrade rune. It made him jump 2 levels at once. To clear up any doubt, Bong asks Meatball to recite the 3 principles of summons. And his effort to remember the lines makes Cossack laugh on the side, confirming it's really the old Meatball. With the team reunited and Meatball back, Bong decides it's time to head back to the tower. After all, they have a lot of climbing time to make up for. The team then teleports to the 34th floor of the Black Tower, and what awaits them are several furious minotaurs, ready for a fight. With his morale sky-high, Meatball already jumps to the front, announcing he'll be on the front lines and the rest of the crew should follow Bong. Bong, though, gets a little uneasy. Meatball, who used to be an imposing 3 meters, is now only 1.9 meters tall, and the summoner wonders if he can handle being a tank like that. To be safe, Bong suggests Meatball get some buffs from Dalray and goes with Cossack. It's a safe tactic to start. But Meatball, super confident, refuses any help. He wants to test his new powers alone and kneels before Bong, asking the summoner to trust him on this solo mission. How audacious. Bong, a bit reluctant, gives in to Meatball's request. But Cossack already warns that he'll be on standby to intervene if things get tough for the barbarian. Meatball wastes no time and charges full throttle against the Minotaurs. His confidence is so high, it's like he's in a personal battle against all of them. Bong is shocked to see Meatball drawing the attention of all the Minotaurs at once, instead of focusing on them one by one. That's a super risky strategy. Suddenly, Meatball's body starts to swell, and he grows and grows, returning to his original form, but even bigger and more muscular than before. Bong's jaw drops. After all, he was worried about the barbarian's reduced size. Meatball now measures an impressive 4 to 5 meters, almost the size of the Minotaurs themselves. Bong can hardly believe his eyes. With this new colossal stature, Meatball isn't just bigger, he's infinitely more reliable. And he shows off his destructive strength against the Minotaurs. He lands punches and blows with absurd ferocity, annihilating the Minotaurs effortlessly. It's a pure display of strength that leaves anyone dumbfounded. Cossack even blurts out that Meatball doesn't seem stupid fighting anymore. And Bong immediately agrees, thinking the big guy is super cool. Cossack comments that giving Meatball that grade upgrade rune was a masterstroke, and he's not wrong. But envy hits Cossack hard, and he explodes, calling the situation a total fraud and game-breaking. He yells that he also used a rune, but didn't get twice as strong as Meatball, and demands that this be cancelled right now. Dalray, as always, doesn't forgive Cossack's insolence and reprimands him right away. She reminds him that the young master is right there, after all. Bong, however, steps in to calm things down, asking Dalray to go easy on Cossack and stop yelling so much. He says the fighting and noise even scare him. So Bong makes a peace pact and suggests Dalray start using honorifics with Cossack to keep harmony. After a somewhat awkward moment, they agree, and Bong makes it clear that his heart aches when the duo fights. While the summoned family sorts out their disagreements, Meatball is still in the thick of the fight. He's taking some hits that remind Bong he's not immortal, you know. With a roar that shakes the walls, Meatball unleashes a hot and powerful aura. He delivers a devastating final attack that annihilates the remaining Minotaur. The system confirms the 34th floor is cleared, thanks to his absurd power. Meatball, still in post-battle ecstasy, declares that the 34th floor was too easy. He's already begging for a stronger fight, showing his thirst for challenge is only growing. Bong, now full of confidence in his SSR Meatball, enthusiastically agrees. He realizes that S+ clearances won't be a problem anymore. They'll be climbing the tower much faster from now on. Even with all the evolution and power, Meatball still hasn't lost his chaotic eating style, spreading food everywhere. Bong Jun-hyuk, meanwhile, can only watch the little monster, who's compact but eats like there's no tomorrow. That's the S++ summoner life for you, a whole feast, even if table manners haven't quite reached one of his protages yet. But Cossack, ever the serious one. Bong Young quickly tells Meatball to cut out the mess. After all, nobody wants a banquet that turns into a battleground. Bong Jun-hyuk, a bit worried, notices Cossack is quieter than usual, and Princess Joan Dalray doesn't hesitate to blurt out that he's just jealous of Meatball. Cossack, of course, instantly denies everything, saying the summoner's safety is what matters. But come on, we all know there's more to that speech. While Meatball proves his size shrunk but his appetite didn't, swiping some of Bong's food, our summoner still saves a bit for Cossack. And Cossack totally melts from the affection. Seizing the affectionate moment, Cossack asks to be summoned again at midnight, using the excuse of watching an international soccer game. Bong Jun-hyuk is surprised by the knight's sudden interest in sports, but he agrees without suspecting a thing. Bong Jun-hyuk then announces he needs to head to the Awakening Management Department by himself since he's stacked up a ton of mana stones. Of course, the summons are desperate to go with him, but he explains there's no way, they aren't registered players, so they can't get in. Arriving at the Awakening Management Department, the player world's bureaucracy was already waiting for Bong Jun-hyuk. A department employee named Young is already waiting for him at the door, always with that VIP treatment that's become routine for a player of his caliber. Bong, being modest, even tries to downplay it, saying a limousine was overkill. But they insist on the courtesy. Inside the office, Young confirms that 54 kilos of mana stones were deposited, totaling a nice 27 million won in Bong Jun-hyuk's account. He even takes a moment to congratulate the summoner for clearing the 66th floor, all thanks to the holy sword he loaned to Namgiban. The department, always trying to please, insists on offering a free penthouse. But Bong Jun-hyuk refuses yet again, saying he prefers to buy a house with his own money. Even with their persistence and promise to keep the property vacant, he feels a pang of guilt for turning down so much generosity. But Young quickly changes the subject, announcing he has something much more important to discuss. And the news is, American player Gerald Watson is headed to Korea. Bong Jun-hyuk can barely contain his surprise. After all, that name is a big deal. Gerald Watson is a world-class magic swordsman, one of the strongest in the US, and the real reason for his visit? He simply wants to rent Bong Jun-hyuk's holy sword. Suddenly, Bong's weapon isn't just powerful, it's an internationally coveted item. Young then reveals the rental fee, 10 million per use. Bong Jun-hyuk, in shock, asks if it's in dollars, and the confirmation that it's 13 billion won makes his head absolutely spin. But Young, in a fit of saving the national economy, thinks $10 million is too little, so he plans to delay negotiations to squeeze out more. Bong Jun-hyuk, horrified by the sheer idiocy of refusing such a fortune, begs them to take the money right away, no pride or stalling. He knows an opportunity like that isn't something you just throw away. With his head spinning, Bong Jun-hyuk finally leaves the department, still trying to digest the money bomb he just received. Back home, he collapses onto the floor, still processing the 13 billion won that's headed his way. Now, even his 2 billion won salary feels like pocket change. He finally feels like a real millionaire. Even though he could afford any feast, from steak to sashimi, Bong Jun-hyuk decides to save and just makes a simple ramen. He'd rather save the luxuries to eat together with his summons, showing that wealth hasn't changed his heart. Right at midnight, Cossack gets summoned again, all excited for the supposed soccer game. Bong Jun-hyuk, exhausted from the day, can only yawn and tell him to enjoy the show. For a moment, Cossack actually seems focused on the TV, but then his expression changes to something scarily serious. While Bong Jun-hyuk sleeps soundly, he's preparing for a mission way more important than a mere game. He reveals he planted undetectable tracking marks on 2 suspicious guys who were monitoring Summoner Bong's official. The sheer audacity of these spies watching his master's residence infuriates Cossack to no end, and he's not about to let that slide. The spies' destination? A traditional imperial massage parlor, open 24 hours, which was actually a front for their operation. Meanwhile, in some grimy room, men in suits are going through player files, including Kim Min-ji, an elite player with a 3-month contract. They're clearly building a dossier with some seriously ulterior motives. They quickly skip from Jang Dong-soo to Bong Jun-hyuk's file, his photo highlighted, confirming he's also a target. Looks like the summoner has become a hot name on these mysterious operators' interest list. Captain Deng Guanlin, from the Northeast Special Forces Brigade of the Chinese People's Liberation Army, makes it clear. This is a unique operation, and they need to take down as many targets as possible. This mission is ambitious, and there's no turning back. Suddenly, the attack order is interrupted by a gruesome sound, and severed heads get tossed right into the room. Panic explodes as the men realize an intruder is already among them, attacking in the corridors. But the bigger surprise comes when Captain Deng Guanlin sees Cossack sitting there, perfectly calm, admiring a photo of Bong Jun-hyuk. The spy leader is in complete shock, totally baffled how he managed to get in undetected. Deng Guanlin tries a surprise dagger attack, but Cossack blocks it effortlessly, scolding the captain for interrupting him while he was admiring his summoner's image. Cossack's protection of Bong Jun-hyuk is absolutely total. The other soldiers just start firing their weapons without thinking, while Deng Guanlin screams at them to kill the invader. A barrage of bullets fills the whole room. Cossack, with absurd agility, dodges every single shot, promising that everyone there is going to die anyway. He warns them they messed with the wrong person, making it perfectly clear that nobody messes with Summoner Bong Jun-hyuk and gets away with it. Even under a rain of bullets, Cossack charges like lightning, not even flinching. For him, these elite agents are just disposable obstacles. His only mission? Protect Bong. In the blink of an eye, his moves are so fast the agents barely react. Surprise quickly turns to pure despair before they even know what hit him. Cossack's lethality is just insane. The agents try to coordinate, desperate to contain this inexplicable force massacring them. But Cossack's blows are relentless, cutting off any chance of defense. Trying to grab him? Totally futile. Cossack's brutality knows no limits. He dismembers one agent in an instant, showing zero mercy for anyone who dares stand in his way. It's a chilling warning to the others. He mocks the fallen enemies, the coldness in his voice making it clear he feels no remorse for this massacre. Terror spreads among the few who still resist. One of the agents, terrified, wonders if he's dreaming. How can someone treat elite forces so easily? This guy is like a shadow, ruthless and efficient. The agent's mind tries to pinpoint the origin of such power. He rules out every intel unit or special force he knows. This just isn't normal for their world. The only explanation he can find for this superhuman strength? The Black Tower. It's a place where players with unimaginable skills are constantly seen in raid videos. The scariest thing, though, is the realization that even if he is a player, how can he use such power outside the tower's limits? The line between worlds seems to be blurring. Cossack approaches the last agent, wounded and helpless on the ground. His aura of death fills the room. Nobody else can intervene in what's about to happen. With an air of superiority, he stops and watches, knowing the remaining agent's life is completely in his hands. It's the peak of his sadism. He asks if the man speaks Korean, demanding an apology in his native tongue. Humiliation before death is part of Cossack's gruesome ritual. Panicked, the agent hears the cold promise. He'll live if he does what Cossack asks. But the terror etched on his face already hints at the tragic outcome approaching. The moment the agent tries to apologize, Cossack brutally silences him, proving his promises are as deadly as his attacks. No mercy here. Cossack makes it clear he'd never forgive anyone audacious enough to cross his path. He acts as judge and executioner, a warning extending far beyond that room. Midst the carnage, Cossack leaves his unmistakable signature. A severed head, adorned with a red bow, a bizarre and terrifying symbol of his presence. Mission accomplished, he leaves the scene, humming like he'd just finished a trivial chore. The brutality of his acts doesn't faze him one bit. Even after leaving, he feels the need to return and check his work, making sure the message was delivered perfectly. Cossack, though, wonders if Summoner Bong would hate him if he knew about his signature move, but he quickly dismisses the idea. This signature is part of who he is, and he wouldn't give it up for anything. He remembers an earlier warning from Bong about acting on his own, and a chill runs down his spine. Truth is, if he got another lecture like that, the chance of being dismissed would be huge, and he dreads that possibility. The next day, Bong, oblivious to Cossack's nightly deeds, greets him with his usual casualness. He asks if his summoned had fun last night. Cossack, with a forced smile and a military salute, assures Bong he had a blast, totally hiding the carnage he actually orchestrated. Bong questions the summoned about the fridge snacks he didn't even touch. Cossack, caught off guard, tries to invent an excuse for his absence overnight. He says he was so immersed in a soccer match he completely forgot about the snacks. Bong, not suspecting a thing, even shows interest in watching the next game with him. The team prepares to climb the 35th floor, the last of the Minotaurs. Meatball, as always, is ready for a fight, while Cossack tries to annoy him and Joan Dalray offers her support. They enter the Black Tower's 35th floor, a Minotaur nest. Their mission? Defeat 80 of them and their king in 13 hours. Bong, oblivious to the difficulty, is already hyped for battle. Joan Dalray quickly conjures her buffs, prepping the fighters for the clash. Her support is essential for the others to give their best. Meatball, expanding his body and emanating a powerful aura, shouts excitedly, ready to unleash his devastating attack. He's always itching for a good fight. He charges without hesitation, landing the first blow against the Minotaur horde. Cossack, annoyed, yells that he should be leading. The leadership dispute is already starting. Cossack is determined to prove his worth, still bothered that Meatball stole the show on the previous floor. Now, he promises to show what a true SSR can do. With even faster, more decisive moves, Cossack attacks the Minotaurs, aiming to surpass Meatball's brute strength. He wants to be the center of attention on this floor. Bong, for his part, is surprised by Cossack's sudden change in behavior, noticing the competitive intensity he exudes. He doesn't quite get why, but he definitely notices. Meatball tries to provoke him, telling him to fight from the back, but Cossack snaps back, yelling he can defend himself too. The fight between these two is both hilarious and intense. Watching the absurd speed with which Cossack and Meatball clear the floor, Bong decides to hurry up and join the battle. He doesn't want to be left behind in the hunt. He uses Shadow Step in midair, bragging about his prodigious mastery of the technique. Summoner Bong is pure spectacle. Despite all the confidence, he sticks to taking down only the weaker enemies. Truth is, Bong likes to show off, but without much risk. Suddenly, the Minotaur King appears with a deafening roar, catching Bong by surprise. The final confrontation for the 35th floor is about to begin. Bong gets spooked, as the boss showed up way faster than expected. He barely had time to warm up before the big showdown. Giving no chances, Meatball charges the Minotaur King and defeats him with a single devastating blow. The boss barely had time to retaliate, showing just how powerful he's become. Bong, relieved and impressed, praises Meatball, acknowledging his strength is so absurd it breaks the game. The warrior has become indispensable. Cossack is frustrated he didn't get a chance to take down the boss and prove his worth. But at the same time, a notification confirms victory on the 35th floor, guaranteeing the rewards. Meanwhile, in the real world, the scene of Cossack's massacre becomes the focus of a large-scale police investigation. The consequences of his actions are starting to unfold. Police document every detail, every fallen weapon, every bloodstain. The meticulous organization of the scene reflects the crime's gravity. The team leader of the Awakened Management Department, Jung Hyuk, and Section Chief Lee Mina arrive on site to investigate the brutal crime. Police officer greets them, grateful for how quickly they arrived. The urgency of the situation is palpable. Jung Hyuk questions Chief Lee about the photos, and she reveals the victims were actually from their own management department, indicating an internal leak. The news hits Jung Hyuk like a punch to the gut. He wonders how the hell such crucial data could leak. Their security is compromised. An even bigger shock hits him as he processes the depth of the betrayal and the imminent danger. The worst is confirmed. Even player Bong's information was compromised. This turns the case from a brutal murder into a direct threat to our protagonist, exponentially raising the stakes. Panicked, Jung Hyuk orders an immediate emergency meeting with all department personnel. The situation is critical and demands an urgent response. Back to Bong's reality, he's euphoric, finally ready to receive the benefits for conquering the 35th floor. The anticipation for what's next is huge. He even thinks of getting some purified water for a prayer ritual to ensure good rewards. But Cossack suggests it's better to pray first, before anything else. Joan Dalray, in her direct way, reminds them the dispenser water isn't purified, and a prayer with it could even bring bad luck. Bong then reminds the princess that it was with this very water that she herself was summoned. Her embarrassment is clear, but he decides to keep the comment to himself. With 35 platinum insignias accumulated, Bong finally opens his inventory to check the long-awaited benefits. The moment of truth has arrived. To everyone's surprise, Bong receives not one, but two legendary tower-exclusive items, a shield and a mace, something he never even expected. The shield, Golden Aegis of Warm Dawn, and the mace, Golden Mace of Cold Twilight, offer incredible effects, boosted defense, attack, and added crowd control. Bong is absolutely thrilled with his new toys. The three summoned watch Bong, who's grinning from ear to ear, and start worrying about the boldness he'll gain with these new items. Cossack even suggests crying to get one for himself. Cossack regrets not saying the prayer, believing something even more glorious could have appeared. But Joan Dalray insists the dispenser water wouldn't make a difference. Meatball, the most naive one, reminds everyone that Joan Dalray was summoned precisely after Bong prayed with that dispenser water. The princess is shocked by the revelation. Meatball states he doesn't lie and doesn't know how to joke, confirming his story's truthfulness. Cossack and Joan Dalray are speechless. The princess tries to defuse the situation, insisting the water dispenser must be extraordinary since it summoned her. Cossack, with a mix of irony and resignation, just agrees. Suddenly, Meatball drops a bombshell. A random summoning is coming, and a new member will join the team. The number of summoned will go up to 4. This raises a serious question, as the 3-person system was supposed to be kept for a while. Tension hangs heavy. If a new being is more useful, someone will be dismissed. The question echoes among them. Who, among the 3, will have to leave to make way for the new summon? One of their fates hangs by a thread. Meatball reflects on his own roles, remembering he's a tank and damage dealer, while Joan Dalray has super powerful support abilities. Cossack then makes a painful realization. If someone has to go, he, in his ambiguous position, will be first on the chopping block. Panic completely takes over.